Good evening and welcome. This is the special board meeting of the Goochland County Board of Supervisors scheduled for Tuesday, March 13th, 2018 at 7 p.m. Tonight we're going to begin on a somewhat somber note. You may have noticed on the way in tonight that the county flag was displayed at half-mast. As many of you know at this point, this board will no longer benefit from the advice and counsel of Supervisor Ned Creasy, our District 3 supervisor, as he passed away this week. Mr. Creasy was a good friend, a valued colleague, a thoughtful mentor, and a strong but quiet leader who touched many lives in Goochland. As a supervisor, he brought great insight and foresight to the issues that came before us. And we are indeed fortunate that his life's journey brought him to Goochland, where he would end up being a catalyst for change to improve the lives of so many. He was a man of strong faith who loved his family, loved his country, and loved Goochland County, and he will be sorely missed. For those that are interested, the funeral services will be held this Saturday at 10 p.m. at the Goochland High School, and viewings will be this Thursday between 2 and 4 p.m. and 6 and 8 p.m. at the Salem Baptist Church. At this point, I would like to pause for a moment of silent reflection in his honor. Thank you. We are pleased to have with us tonight Pastor Zach Zabinden from the Salem Baptist Church, which is where Supervisor Creasy worshiped. And he will deliver the invocation tonight. And the invocation will be followed by the Pledge of Allegiance led by Supervisor Alvarez. So if you'll please rise as you're able, and Pastor, would you please come forward?
Thank you, and let us pray. O Lord, your word said that you sought for a man among them who would make a wall, who would stand in the gap before me on behalf of the land, that I should not destroy it. Lord, we know that Ned was such a man just like that. We thank you, Lord, that you were able to give him the strength, Lord, the character, the desire to be able to serve this county and be able to stand in the gap for many here. And Lord, we just pray that as these supervisors continue to serve us, the people, that, Lord, you will give them strength also, give them wisdom. Lord, we know that all wisdom cometh from above. And Lord, you are our Heavenly Father. We thank you, Lord, that you have blessed us with life. And as we celebrate Ned's life, Lord, we also want to thank you that because of his faith in you, Lord, we have that hope that we find in Jesus Christ, for it's in his name we pray. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The next item on the agenda for this evening is the citizen comment period. This is a comment period when citizens can approach this board and speak to us on any subject of Goochland County business that's not on the agenda for this evening. So if you're here to speak during the public hearing for the public hearing that we have scheduled for this evening, this is not that time. But if you'd like to address this board on any other issue, now would be the time to come forward. So I will open the public comment period. Seeing none, we'll go ahead and close the public comment period. The next item on the agenda is a public hearing for this evening. Some of you may be new faces here this evening. I'll just walk through very quickly the process that we'll follow tonight. First, the staff county staff will present to this board the application that they've received from the applicant, followed by a presentation by the applicant, followed by a public hearing in which citizens will be available to come up to the microphone, possibly followed by an applicant's rebuttal, if depending on the nature and the extent of the comments. And then the issue will be put to this vote for consideration. If you do come up for the public comment period tonight, we would ask that you give your name and address for the record, and that you limit your comments to 3 minutes. If you would like to say something that the person before you said, you can simply say, "I agree," or what he said. You're under no obligation to fill the entire 3 minutes. If you'd like to transfer your time to someone else because you're not comfortable at the microphone, that's fine, but we would ask that you come forward and give us your name and address and indicate that you would be transferring your minutes, and we will allow you to transfer 2 of those 3 minutes to someone else, and subject to an overall cap of 10 minutes. We'd like to not have anybody speak for more than 10 minutes, so that would be the primary speaker and up to 4 other people that can transfer their time, their 2 minutes each. With that as the general overview on the process for this evening, we have county staff to come forward and present the application. Ms. Hunter?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Joanne Hunter, Director of Community Development. The first and only public hearing this evening is a rezoning request submitted by H.H. Hunt for approximately 208 acres. Their requested rezoning is from M1 with proffers to RPUD with proffers. Property is located in the eastern portion of the county, generally between Hockett Road and 288. The land use plan designates this property as prime economic development. Prime economic development, when it was included in the comprehensive plan, it did not consider residential uses as part of the prime economic development designation. This is the zoning map. You can see the property is zoned M1. It is part of the West Creek Industrial Park, and right now the property is subject to the extensive M1 West Creek proffers. There's A1 zoning, A2 zoning, and also RPUD zoning nearby. This is an aerial of the photo. You can see that the property is generally L-shaped. It's several different parcels that have been consolidated for this project, the 208 acres. It wraps around Capital One, which is located directly to the east. To the west is the Kinloch Golf Course, and generally to the north and south are vacant properties at this time. Again, like I indicated, this property is part of the West Creek development. West Creek is approximately 3,500 acres. Approximately 2,600 of those are still undeveloped. If this rezoning was approved, this property would be removed from the West Creek development and would reduce that acreage. Right now, there's approximately 2.1 million square feet of office in the West Creek Park. There's existing transportation and public utility infrastructure. Residential was not part of the original vision for West Creek. The board did approve a few years ago a provision to allow 60 acres of multifamily in West Creek, and then the board also rezoned 10 acres along Broad Street corridor for B1 or commercial zoning. This would be the first request for single-family or townhouse development within the West Creek development. What the applicant is proposing is a age-restricted development. What that means is that one person who resides in the home must be over the age of 55. The applicant has also expanded that with a proffer that says no one under the age of 19 would live in the development. They are proposing 520 housing units. These are, the single-family lots are very small. They're proposing 55-foot and 65-foot wide lots. These would be the smallest lots that have ever been developed in the county. The 55-foot wide lot would be a lot size of about 6,800 square feet. They are also anticipating townhouse development. They've submitted a proffer that the maximum only 40% of the units would be townhouses, which equates to no more than 208 townhouses. This would be the first townhouse development in the county, and also the first townhouses in our RPUD district. At 520 units, it would be the largest subdivision in the county. Right now, Kinloch has a little over 300 units, and that is the existing largest development in the county. They are proposing the maximum density that's allowed in the RPUD district. It's 2.5 units per acre. They have indicated about an 8-year build-out is what their goal would be. That's an average of about 65 homes per year. Just to put that into relation of where we are right now, we generally average about 130 homes per year. So it would be quite an increase to the number of housing units coming online in the county. They are proposing an amenity package that includes a pool, a clubhouse, a fitness center, sidewalks, and trails. They do have 3 conceptual plans that they've proffered. I want you to note that there is a large gas line that runs down through the development, through the very center of the development. There's also a large floodplain that runs across the development between Capital One and the residential uses. There's a couple different modifications to each conceptual plan. This first conceptual plan shows the community amenities such as the pool and the clubhouse up front of the development. Just to orient you, this is Tuckahoe Creek. This is Hockett Road. They have 2 access points, one on Tuckahoe Creek and one down on Broad Branch. The county policy requires you can have no more than 49 lots on a single point of access. So if this was approved and they were to develop it, they could only build 49 lots in the front and 49 lots in the bottom. And then before they built any other lots, they would have to build this L-shaped connecting road through it. The applicant has provided a stub to the west and also a stub to the south. The orange are the townhouse development. This is another layout that's also proffered, a little bit different. It's showing the amenity package more centrally located in the project with townhouses, and the peachy color are the smaller lot sizes. And then again, this is the third one, same with the community amenities in the middle, but just a slight different layout. In terms of transportation, as I indicated, there were 2 access points that I showed you on Tuckahoe Creek and Broad Branch. They provided the 2 stubs that I showed you to the west and to the south. There is one outstanding issue in terms of transportation. The length of the storage taper for Broad Branch Drive northbound turn lane is inadequate. It does not meet the code for storage and taper. They did do a traffic impact analysis as was required for this development. It's important to note that for age-restricted developments, the traffic impact is reduced because typically the 55 plus do not travel during peak hour times. But the project would add 2,050 vehicle trips per day to the county roads. Just to put that into comparison, Tuckahoe Creek, right now, their 2016 traffic counts were 2,600 vehicles per day, and Broad Branch carries 3,000 vehicles per day. So if you sort of split those two, it would be about a 50% increase for both of the roads. The traffic impact study submitted with the application notes a decline in level of service for several nearby intersections through the study's 2025 timeframe, even without this project. This project is in an area where we didn't have known transportation concerns and where we do currently have failing intersections. The project will add additional traffic to intersections that are currently operating beyond capacity. The county's preference is to have roads operating at a level of service C or above. Currently, right now, the southbound turn lane at the AM Peak at the intersection of West Creek Parkway and Broad Branch Drive operates at a level of service F. The board had asked us to have a third party review their traffic impact analysis. Staff worked with Kimley Horn. Kimley Horn did provide an analysis of the applicant's TIA. So they were able to take some of this difficult to understand data and put it in more simple terms. So what does that level of service F mean? So what that means is the southbound turn lane queue is about 14 to 17 vehicles long. And they've noted with this H.H. Hunt development, that queue lane would extend from 14 to 17 to 1721 vehicles long. With background traffic and the other approved developments in the area, including Bristol Apartments and Hardywood, you can see we have level of service F and E also in the study area. Again, this is prior even to the Hunt development. There is the 2005 Major Thoroughfare Plan, which identifies a north-south connector with an alternative alignment. The applicant is providing a stub road to the south that runs from Tuckahoe Creek to the south of the property. We do believe that this addresses that connection. The MTP also identifies Hockett Road as a future 4-lane road. The applicant has provided the right-of-way for the expansion to 4 lanes, but they have not offered any road improvements on Hockett Road. As I indicated, we hired Kimley Horn to review the TIA. They provided a report that was included in your packet, an analysis of their TIA. They had 6 recommendations in there that they thought that the numbers, they couldn't quite verify the numbers in their study, such as number 1 was to verify the actual peak hour operations are accurately being replicated in the existing condition operation analysis, or if the model input revisions are required. Another recommendation was confirm that the operational analysis reflect traffic volumes. So there was about 6 recommendations along this line. The applicant provided a response to that about 5 o'clock today. I have it printed out for you. Staff had not had a chance to interpret it yet. The good news for transportation is staff also asked Kimley Horn to provide analysis of 2 additional intersections that were not included in the scope of the applicant by no fault of theirs. We did not ask them to include these intersections. However, in several community meetings and public meetings, these 2 intersections came up as a concern from the citizens, Hockett Road and Patterson Avenue, and Tuckahoe Creek and Capital One Drive. So we did ask Kimley Horn to review the traffic impacts from those developments. From a good note that although both of these intersections do have transportation concerns, this development did not significantly impact the decline based on the H.H. Hunt project. This is some new information. This unfortunately came in very, very, very late in the process. As you know, as we were doing all our projects, we were a little bit behind the 8 ball in future planning for the county. So we've done the capital impact study. Also, in addition, the board approved about 6 months ago funding for us to do a major thoroughfare plan. We are working through that major thoroughfare plan process. Ideally, we would have had this information before. It's very late in the process, but we feel like because we know it, we have to share this information. We had an internal meeting on Thursday with Kimley Horn. We've been meeting about once a month with them. And based on Kimley Horn's analysis of the county's socioeconomic data and their transportation demand model, they did identify a need for an east-west connector. This potential road would connect Hockett Road to either West Creek Parkway or Broad Branch. However, they did indicate Broad Branch was the preferred location. Because the connection to Broad Branch would need to go through this property, staff notified the applicant of this recommendation, and the applicant has not addressed this issue at this time. But again, it is very new information. In conclusion, on the planning analysis, the project is not in compliance with the comprehensive plan. Residential was not envisioned for the prime economic development areas. The applicant does not address the stacking and tapering at Broad Branch. And the slide says numbers and traffic, the TIA could not be verified. That may have changed with the applicant's submittal, but I have not, like I said, have not reviewed that yet. So that sort of concludes the planning analysis. Remember, the board did defer this case back in December while the county was working through their capital impact study and model. So now I want to move into that, the capital impact review portion of this. Just to remind everybody what cash proffers are and why we did the capital impact study and model. Cash proffers are one-time voluntary payments agreed to during a rezoning to offset the proposed impacts from new development. The payments are per house and they're collected at the time of certificate of occupancy. The funds are collected and used to construct or improve capital facilities to accommodate the new residential development. Cash proffer amounts are intended to represent new residential development's fair share of certain facility needs. And it's important to know that real estate taxes generally pay the operational cost of county services, such as salaries, equipment, and supplies, but not the capital cost for new projects, such as new parks or new schools that's needed when you have new residential development. The county's been collecting proffers since 2000. However, in July of 2016, there was a significant state law change in terms of the proffers. And proffers now, you used to be able to have a county-wide number and you could apply that number by the whole county. That is no longer the case. Now when someone offers a proffer, it has to create a need or identifiable portion of a need for the public facility improvement in excess of existing public facility capacity at the time. It needs to be specifically attributable to the development, and it must have the development must have a direct and material benefit from the proffer that they are addressing. It also limits to what you can collect cash proffers for to the capital projects of public safety, parks, schools, and roads. Libraries are no longer proffer eligible. So this new cash proffer law was much more restrictive than what was occurring before 2016. In response to these changes, staff began trying to figure out how to handle residential development. We did adopt a proffer policy that required the applicant to prepare a development impact statement so they could come up with what was their specifically attributable impacts of their residential development. As we began reviewing those DIS reports, staff became concerned that the county did not have the adequate data that was necessary for either the applicant to prepare or for staff to truly review their DIS to determine what their capital impacts could be. We then went through a process of hiring Tischler Bice, a financial consultant who developed a capital impact study and model for the county. That new proffer policy was adopted in February of 2018. As part of that adoption of that model and for the future planning for growth and development, the county also adopted the 25-year CIP. The schools adopted a study. County did a space study. We started the major thoroughfare plan process. So while we're in a bad situation with some of these cases that are currently moving through the process, as new cases come in, we'll be in a much better position. At the capital impact model has two sets of outputs. The first one is the county did not just limit the study and model to the 4 proffer eligible categories. We looked at all of the capital facilities so that for the first time the county and the board would have the information they need to find out what is the capital cost of development. This model can be run for either residential or commercial uses. And the 10 capital facilities that the model looks at is schools, fire, libraries, courts, parks and recreation, animal protection, general government, sheriff, transportation, and environmental services. So the model estimates utilizes a per capita approach and assigns a proportionate share to each citizen based on the actual level of service. Then the second set of the model incorporates the state's legislative mandate that new development cannot contribute if there's existing capacity, and it also takes into account the geographic location of that capacity. So it looks at only the proffer eligible categories, which is schools, public safety, parks and recreation, and transportation. The model is then run, and it's used for informational purposes to provide to the applicant and to the board of what their capital impacts are. Now, this would be the third capital impact that the board has seen. You saw the first two last week, and you'll see this one. You'll also see that all three of them have been vastly different in terms of what the output shows. That just shows you how unique and how good this model is as looking at each project as an individual and coming up with its specifically attributable impacts. So if you look at the top, you put in the number of units. So this is 520 units based on an age-restricted development. So this project was run as a project located in the East End and as an age-restricted development. Once it's age-restricted, the number of the population numbers, everything changed based on that. So based on 520 units, the projected population would be 899 people. This red column here looks at the full capital cost of the development on those 10 profit categories, and then the blue on the right is when you look at the state mandate or if there's a capacity trigger. So as you can see, there's no school impact because the applicant has proffered that no one under the age of 19 would live in the development, so there would be no school children. If you look at the sheriff office, it shows there's an impact. This is what their capital impacts would be, but we have no sheriff projects proposed, so there's no cash proffer eligible impact. So you can look through all that, but what it generally relates to is that the capacity trigger number is $4,937 per unit. You can see this in a breakdown. Again, no school funding, $803 per unit for parks and recreation, $1,536 for public safety, $2,598 for transportation, or a per capita number per house of $4,937. We did review these numbers with the applicant, and the applicant did certify that they believe this number is reasonable, and they have offered a cash proffer for this, and we believe that they fully have addressed their capital impacts. Didn't want to show you what the impacts were without showing you what the revenue are. Hunt may have much more sophisticated information that they may share with you, but we did some general revenue numbers, same way we did the other two. So we show the real estate. You have several recurring taxes, such as the real estate tax. Vehicles, we based it on one home, each home having one car at an average value of $12,000. That would be a recurring tax of just under $250,000. The majority of this property is in the TCSD. They would have to bring in about 10 parcels if the project was approved into the TCSD, but you would have an estimated recurring tax towards the TCSD of about $500,000. And then there's a number of one-time fees, such as water and sewer connection fees, plan of development and stormwater fees, plat review fees, and building permit fees. So you can see what the revenue would be there. About $6 million one-time fees and recurring revenues of about 1.6 to 1.8. The applicant did have 3 community meetings. Again, this was sort of in the process while we were trying to figure out how to move forward under this new proffer legislation, which required a number of community meetings. The first meeting was well over a year ago, back in February. And there was about 50 attendees. Issues included traffic concerns, the need for a light at Hockett and Tuckahoe Creek Parkway, the buffer along Hockett Road, and questions about fire and rescue's ability to serve this project. They had another meeting in June. We had about 20 attendees. The applicant reviewed their DIS at that time. There were some traffic concerns and also questions about their impact of this development on Capital One. On August 16th, they had their last of their 3 meetings. There was 24 attendees, and they reviewed their DIS. There were some traffic questions and questions about age restricted. At the November 2nd Planning Commission meeting, the commission was unable to come to a consensus for a recommendation on this case. One of the Planning Commission members was absent from that meeting, and the commission forwarded this to the board with a 2-2 tie vote. At that meeting, 4 people spoke in favor and 8 people spoke in opposition to that request. And as I reminded you, the board did defer this case in December while we were awaiting the completion of the capital impact study and model. I'll quickly review some of the proffers that the applicant has provided. The first one is the age restricted. And again, the additional proffer of no one under the age of 19 can live in the home. They did proffer the 3 conceptual plans that I showed you in the presentation. Right-of-way dedication, they have provided the right-of-way dedication along Hockett Road to have a no more than 15 feet of right-of-way. Buffer along Hockett Road, we typically recommend a 100-foot buffer along major roadways. There are some areas where their proffer would be less than 100 feet. It may be a minimum of 75 feet. And where that is located, they would have additional landscaping or a fence. They are proffering a right turn lane on Tuckahoe Creek Parkway. The other intersection already has both a right and left turn lane. There is a proffer on lighting. They have proffered elevations. The top 2 are the single-family development, and the bottom 2 pictures are the townhouse units. They have proffered the density of 520 with no more 40% of those being townhomes. There's also a sidewalk and trail proffer. The yellow in this map is where they would have sidewalks. It's generally on the one side of every road. And if the red area, it blends in a little bit on that gray. But you can see some red area along Hockett and down through the center of the development. Those would be trails. They've proffered that yards would be sodded and mulched. Number 11 is the cash proffer. You can see that was changed from when you saw it last time. When they had originally done their DIS analysis, they had estimated their impacts as $1,648. They have revised that to $4,937, which is consistent with what the model showed. They are proffering 1 street tree for every 50 feet along the roadway. That would just generally be one in front of each house. This is a revised proffer, and it's actually redlined on your desk in front of you tonight. It's a change to their protective covenants. Staff does not usually comment on protective covenants. It's not something that we regulate, and it's not something that we typically review. They have proffered an entrance feature. One would be located at Tuckahoe Creek, and one would be located at Broad Branch. They've proffered that it would be something similar to what they have with their other developments as shown on the slide. And they've also proffered that any of the properties that is not in the TCSD, they will apply to bring that into the TCSD. So I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Thank you, Ms. Hunter. Questions for staff at this time?
Not yet.
I have
Ma'am?
one, Mr. Chairman.
Sure.
Ms. Hunter,
Yes.
I know the north-south collector is in the 25-year plan. Is the east-west connector?
In the 25-year CIP?
CIP? Mhm.
No. The east-west connector. There's a statement in the comprehensive plan about it. It's not identified on any map. And the first time that there was any discussion of a location was this past Thursday.
Thank you.
Any other questions at this point? I suspect maybe some of our questions may be answered by the applicant, but
Okay.
we'll reserve. Thank you, Ms. Hunter. All right, at this point, would the applicant like to come forward?
Before we start our time, I'd like to extend our heartfelt sympathies this evening on the loss of your friend and colleague, Mr. Creasy, and we appreciate that this is a difficult evening.
Thank you. Thank you.
With that said, my name is Kim Cassani. I represent H.H. Hunt. I'd like to reserve 3 minutes for rebuttal. And each
Okay.
time we come, do we get 5 extra minutes? I mean, we've been here.
Is that how it works?
Nice try.
So I'm here to talk to you about Mosaic at West Creek. I'll try not to duplicate what Joanna said, but our application requests rezoning from M1 to RPUD. There are 520 homes on 208 acres, and the community is planned for 55 years of age and better, with the amenities detailed here, and over 5 miles of trails and 80 acres of open space. Joanne detailed for you the entrances and the stub roads. At the request of the county, a 527 traffic study was conducted and subsequently approved by VDOT as well. We reviewed the county impact model and have agreed to proffer $4,937 per home in cash proffers to address those impacts directly and specifically attributable to Mosaic. This is being done voluntarily. The proffers are deemed in this specific instance to be reasonable, and the offer of these proffers is in keeping with state statutes governing cash proffers in the Commonwealth. There were 3 conclusions communicated to us in the staff comments received this past Friday. The first 2 are the same as the December report, and we covered those then. The last one is different, and I'll touch on each of these again. The first concern deals with compliance with the comp plan, and West Creek was zoned in 1988 primarily for Motorola. Then that deal never materialized. As time ticked by, it became apparent that there had to be a change in strategy for West Creek to address sustainability, infrastructure debt, and other realities of the changes in the market. The developers of West Creek have done a good job of identifying different types of users that could exist together and bring uniqueness and synergy to West Creek. It is in that spirit that we bring forward Mosaic. The comp plan specifically provides that this area of the county is where development belongs and where the growth has been planned. And to those who would speak tonight against density, we would say that density in this plan actually preserved the rural nature of Goochland by concentrating homes where there are utilities and by not encouraging development to sprawl into your rural areas where no infrastructure support exists and there's no sustainability. As evidenced by the board's past consideration and approval of residential projects in West Creek such as the Notch, this trend reflects prudent land use planning with a positive fiscal impact to the county. The property today is assessed at approximately $41,000 per acre. To compare, CarMax is assessed at $289,000 per acre and Cap One at $658,000. After build-out, Mosaic's land will be assessed at an estimated $937,000 per acre. These homes will then generate $33 million, or $1.6 million net gain annually through June of 2039, including substantial contributions to the Tuckahoe Creek Service District. And this does not address, they don't take into account jobs created, retail impacts, hiring of local contractors. With regard to the second conclusion on the stacking and tapering at Broad Branch Drive, there's currently an existing 98-foot storage and 98-foot taper for the northbound left turn. The 527 traffic study approved by VDOT determined that the maximum turn lane required, or the storage lane, would be 46 feet. But there was concern because the ordinance is 200 feet. In our meetings with the county and our traffic engineers, the county offered some possible solutions, including paving the median area to achieve the turn lane extension and taper. We're optimistic that we can work that out with staff and find a solution at the time of plan of development, which is when, in our experience, this is normally handled. This is really not a zoning matter as much as a plan of development matter. Again, while it was not warranted or required, we performed the 527 study, and by that I mean the size of the community was not such that VDOT required this study. VDOT has approved that. We are paying proffers based on the county's impact analysis. And we received late information and comments on our TIA, which our engineer prepared responses to, and you have those with you. If you look at those, the result of his going back and doing what was asked by Kimley Horn did not result in a change of our traffic impact analysis. There was one area that asked about crash data, and they wanted details of what had occurred in that area, and there were 7 crashes over 5 years. That's 1.4 a year. No fatalities, and none of the crashes related to capacity issues. They were all driver error. So I think that was a question that came up in December, and there was concern in that regard. But the other matters were all technical, and none of them changed the analysis. Our analysis yielded 0 impacts for which we could proffer a cash offering. So you don't see a change in the cash proffer as a result of those TIA comments. You do see that we are paying here per home $2,598, $1.3 million to address traffic impacts. I do want to speak to the east-west connector. This came up at the Planning Commission meeting. It was also discussed at the December Board of Supervisors meeting. And the discussion at that time stemmed from the landowners to the south. And now it's my understanding, and Joanne has reported to you, that this east-west connector has come up as a result of Kimley Horn, while not in any of the reports that have been sent to us. Ms. Hunter commented that we've not addressed this issue, but I don't feel there's anything for us to address. As we've said in the past, there's nothing we are asking you to approve tonight that would prevent a connection to Broad Branch Road. We have shown you here on our plan, and these plans are in essence a proffer. They're a proffered condition, that we have nothing built in that area. So at any time a road could connect through there. We're not doing anything that would keep that from happening in the future. In that regard, there's no need to delay a vote on Mosaic to address the issue, as we're delivering what we really think is a win-win for the east-west connector in Goochland County. When you consider that in 5 to 7 years, you'll have one-time fees of $7 million when we're at build-out and recurring annual fees. In this way, with these revenues, we start to bring you solutions to the traffic issues by generating the people paying tax dollars to make your roads reality. So the summary of the benefits is here. The financial benefits at the top. This is a less intensive use. There's no impact to schools. There's a gentle transition of uses. It encourages corporate and business growth. You get quality rooftops, innovative and unique design. It supports your existing retail, engages H.H. Hunt in your community, improves your water service quality, provides connectivity, and continues the revitalization of West Creek. And I want to point to serving the growing demographic and Goochland residents. We have over 100 people on our interest list who contact us regularly. And I understand that you all probably heard from a good number of those, as we heard from over 30 folks today. You may not know this, but our market studies indicated that on the basis of age, you have the oldest population in the Richmond MSA. And you risk inviting your residents to leave if you don't provide the types of housing that they desire and they need to stay in their community. So we want you to consider that. So why tonight? We are your first step in solving existing traffic concerns. And Ms. Hunter was correct in her statement that there are concerns without this project. We are a solution, not a problem. We don't prevent the east-west connector. And the earlier you get the revenue to Goochland County, the earlier you can start working on those solutions, including the Tuckahoe Creek Service District. This is a strong case that will benefit Goochland County, and we respectfully request your approval this evening. And this is just our timeline if we were to receive approval this evening. How'd I do? How much time do I have?
You're doing fine. Okay. Well, thank you very much for that presentation. Board, are there questions for the applicant at this point?
If you don't mind,
Yeah,
Mr.
sure.
Chairman.
Sure.
Thank you very much for that. Under the protective covenants, and we have the red line change.
Right.
So the original owner of a unit, at least one person has to be 55 or older.
And on resale. The homes cannot be sold to anyone where there is not a member of the household 55 and older, and there, under no circumstance can anyone live there that's under the age of 19.
Okay, so that's even on resale as well.
Correct.
Thank you.
If I could just follow that, what would it take to change that?
Rezoning. They'd have to remove that proffer for one.
So it'd be a public hearing and a rezoning, is that
Yes.
in order to change that?
Yes, since it's a proffer, it would have to come
Okay.
before you to change. And if I might, the applicant is accurate about the 55 and older. It is absolutely true that by proffer, no one under the age of 19 would live there, but the Federal Fair Housing Act does allow 20% of the homes to be occupied by people who do not have somebody 55 and older. So, but at least 80% would have someone 55 and older, and they, by proffer, would not allow any school children.
May I speak to the 20%?
Sure.
We, before we went into this, we had an expert in 55-plus housing come in and speak with us. And she explained that that high threshold was put there to cover folks who had a parent who owned a home and they inherited the home and maybe wanted to live there. In no instance can it be sold to someone. That 20% cannot be used in a sales process. So they said the actual percentage in these communities is much, much lower because of that turnover doesn't happen often, and rarely does a younger child want to move in. They usually sell it or rent it. So I just want to clarify that's why the federal statute, they didn't want to have to keep going back for that purpose, and she said 20% is a pretty high threshold.
Sure, go ahead, Mr. Alvarez.
Mr. Chairman,
Yeah.
Ms. Casani, one of the proffers was that any property not currently in the TCSD would be added to the TCSD.
Yes.
My question tonight is, if we do the rezoning tonight, if we approve this rezoning, does that automatically happen? Or do we have to come back and,
You have to change the boundaries, right?
we have to come back and change the boundaries at some
Yes.
point?
Yeah, they proffer that they would do that, but yes, then they would go
Do
through
we
the process.
know that there are any properties that are not currently in the TCSD?
I do believe we're
10.
maybe 10.
I'm not sure of the exact number, but there are a
Some
few.
number about that.
Okay.
But that would go through the regular process to be added
Okay,
before the board.
thank you.
Other questions?
One more,
Sure.
Mr. Chair.
Go right ahead, Ms. Glass.
Excuse me. So the West Creek Association.
Yes.
Okay, so the West Creek Association, can you explain to us about being in or out of the West Creek Association? What does that really mean?
Sure. Right now, the West Creek Association has its own restrictive covenants, CCRs. So if this land were to stay in the West Creek Association, it would have a sub-association that addressed all of the things it wanted to address, but it would also fall under the restrictions of the West Creek Association, pay assessments into that association. It really doesn't change anything operationally other than who the people there report to as far as an HOA. We don't control the annexation process, and I think it is the goal of the landowners to de-annex, but we had to make sure the proffer reflected both options if the land could not be de-annexed. It's cleaner to take it out and to have its association. Either way, it will have a residential association. I don't know if that answered, yeah.
Other questions?
Yeah, just what does it, Kim, so let me see if I got that straight. So in this development, there could be more than one HOA? Is that what I'm concluding from?
Yes, that's not unusual.
Right.
Like, for example, in Wyndham, we have, our townhome communities have two associations, a master and a sub. If you have the master association, it usually takes care of the common areas, the big things, and you would take care of the things specific to your community. So it's not a double dip. It's just who handles the maintenance of one area over another.
Okay.
Other questions? If we go back to the age restriction for just a second.
Sure.
You mentioned inheritance as one possible way to back into ownership, if you will. And I also understand at least one person has to be 55. And so theoretically, the other could be childbearing age.
In no instance can anyone under the age of 19 live there.
I'm talking about a spouse, not a child.
Well, right, so a spouse could be childbearing age, but if they had a child, they would have to move.
Okay, what's the enforcement for that? What?
It's a federal restriction, so the HOA is obligated to enforce that. So if there were a complaint to the county, it would come back to the HOA to enforce, and there are guidelines. It will also be part of the HOA's documents, so those people will have a deed restriction that states that as well.
So as I heard earlier, up to 20% wiggle room in that number?
Only by inheritance. You can't sell to someone that does not comply.
Right. So if a 55 and a 30 buy it, so that's fine. And they have a child, would they be forced to sell, or would they, how would
They
this
could
work?
keep the property and rent. I've only dealt with it personally one time, and it was simply a matter of enforcing through the courts, and it was on the homeowners association.
Okay, I really am not trying to play gotcha here. I really am just trying to understand the age-restricted nature, how you police it, how you monitor it, what kind of enforcement.
Every 2 years, the association is obligated under federal law to report to the federal agency that regulates it. I can't tell you off the top of my head who that is.
I think it's FHA.
Yeah, I think it is too. Their numbers and stats. So every 2 years, they have to do an audit.
Okay, so every
Yeah.
2 years, the report's filled out and sent forward.
Right.
There has to be some kind of a canvas to support the report, I'm sure. So
Correct.
they have the numbers. And the 20% is exclusively for inheritance-type
Correct.
accidental ownership of someone who's
You
under
can't
55.
sell, it's illegal to sell to someone
Okay.
that doesn't.
And the homeowner associations by majority vote can't change that because it's a proffer to the county, so they'd have to
Correct.
be rezoning to change that.
And it's usually a deed restriction as well. So it would have to be, you all would have to agree to it, and the homeowners association, by whatever percentage is written into their documents, would have to vote to change that aspect.
Yeah, the homeowners would not be entitled to change it because the only reason they're allowed to put an age restriction on it is pursuant to federal law. Other than that, it would be considered discriminatory.
Sure.
On the basis of age. So they have to comply with the federal law, or else so it's not just a homeowners can change, they would be out of compliance with federal law. And FHA, I believe that's the right agency, monitors that, that's why they have the reports and so forth. So no matter what the homeowner's documents says, they would have to comply with the federal law.
Okay, great. All right, thank you. And on the east-west connector, just last question real quick. You mentioned that you're not precluding
Correct.
any ultimate connection. Am I to understand you're not enabling any kind of a connection either? You're not precluding or enabling, it's just not part of your application, or?
I think we enable it by not having anything built there. But no one knows what's going to be south of there, what size, what scope, where
Sure.
it should hit, if that's the right answer. So we are keeping those options open for the county, for whoever. And, we have met with the people south. We know what the concerns are. But there's nothing we're doing that would prevent that in the future.
But they would need access, or, you're
Sure.
not building anything on that land, but neither are you providing
Well,
access.
if it ends up being on the county's thoroughfare plan and it's necessary and there's a public necessity, there are mechanisms in place for the county to have that connection.
Okay. All right, fair enough. Any other questions at this point? Thank you very much for the presentation. I appreciate it. And I'll reserve 3 minutes for you for rebuttal after.
Maybe four. I was
Maybe
short.
4.
I was short.
Okay, we've heard the staff presentation, we've heard the applicant's presentation. It's now time for a public hearing. So I will go ahead and open up the public hearing. And again, anyone that would like to come forward to speak either in favor, against, or just comment on this application, now would be the time to do so. Please limit your comments to about 3 minutes and give us your name and address as you reach the microphone. The public hearing is now open. Somebody has to be first.
Yes, my name is Gary Lewis. I live at 604 Hockett Road. We've been here 14 years, and one of the reasons I did move here was because of the way Goochland treats its people, and I like to see Goochland stay that way. I saw one proposal, or I don't know if it's really a proposal, but they seem to think that making Hockett Road into a 4-lane road going down to Patterson is a great idea or an option. I think West Creek was developed and 288 was developed to support the traffic coming in and out of West Creek, and any access that needs to be added should be going in that direction. Hockett Road, if you turn that into a 4-lane highway, everyone along that road is going to suffer from loss of value of their property and loss of value of life, or just the way things are. It's not going to be quiet anymore. So you got West Creek is going to provide all this money to y'all, which is great. Let's have a better traffic plan so it doesn't tear up everybody's life going south to Patterson Avenue. We all like our road the way it is. A little extra traffic I can live with. We turn it into a 4-lane road, now my property value goes down. And I got 3 properties that hit that road right along that area. So I'd really prefer that the traffic issues get addressed and resolved, even if they allow these buildings to be built. Something needs to be done that doesn't disrupt 40 people's lives along that road. It's just really not fair for us, because it's not benefiting us. It's only benefiting one group, or, the county itself. I can agree with the county benefiting, that's fine. But I don't want to suffer for it too. I've invested a lot of money into my property. I'd really like to see some of that at the end. Thank you.
Good. All right. Thank you, Gary. Anyone else like to come forward?
I'll follow in his heels while that's still fresh.
Anyone
Name's Laura
else that would like to
Lewis.
come forward can maybe take a seat in the front row and be ready to go if you like to.
Okay.
Okay, yes.
I'm Laura Lewis, 604 Hockett Road. I think my husband said everything pretty much that we have to say, but I want to reiterate, we chose Goochland County because of its dedication to a rural lifestyle that we love. We want to see that be preserved, not just for ourselves, but for our neighbors whose properties are on Hockett Road. So please, if you could do whatever you can to protect the rural nature of our strip, put the road somewhere where you're not affecting people's houses and people's lifestyles, their front yards, where their children play, how we've invested in our properties, what you're going to wake up to every morning and see when you open the door. If you could please help preserve that nature that we all bought into and means so much to us. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Hi, my name is Barbara Lynch, and I am part of the Benford family that owns 54 acres of land off of Hockett Road. And this land is also part of land that is being reviewed by some other folks, and I'd like to give my voting time over to Clifford, Hampshire, to speak on my behalf, my time, so.
Okay, thank you, Barbara.
Okay, do I need to give an address?
You gave your name and address.
I didn't give her the address. Do you need the? Uh-huh.
Please give her the address then, and then, that way it's on the public record.
Okay.
Thank you.
My home address is 16251 Goldmine Lane, in Rockville, Virginia, 23146.
And you're giving your 2 minutes to,
To Gifford, Hampshire. Okay.
great, thank you.
All right, thanks.
Hi, I'm Ben Collins, and I live on 910 Hockett Road. And I actually, even though I live on Hockett Road, my house is off the road, which is beneficial for myself. But my neighbors actually live on Hockett Road. Their houses are right on Hockett Road. And if there was a 4-lane highway, it's going to literally put them even more so closer to the road. And it's going to be, really bad for them. So I'm more speaking for my neighbors than I am myself. But I do care about my neighbors, and I hope you do too. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Good evening. My name is Rick Ehrenstein. I live at 12,100 Valley Brook Drive in Henrico. I represent the folks who control about 250 acres immediately adjacent and south of the proposed development, and I'd like to allocate my time to give Hampshire.
Okay, we've got your name and address, and we have the person, I guess we don't have the person's address that you're giving your time to? Well, he'll give it to us when he
He'll give
comes
it to
up. Oh, Clifford, same person, all right, good, good, thank
We
you.
have two, Ms. Lynch.
All right.
and-
Yep,
Hi, my name is Mike Kelly, and I'm a resident of Goochland County, and I live at 1450 Millers Lane, Manikin Sabbath. In reading the latest planning conclusions, the key issues here were, one, the 2035 comprehensive plan, and while residential wasn't specifically included in that plan when it was done, this community would bring a nice balance to the area. Not to mention the increase in the tax base and the increased revenues that could be used to address the Tuckahoe Creek Service District debt. The West Creek development never attracted the development that I think was initially planned. Everybody thought Motorola was coming, and that didn't happen. And now it's time to, that land has sat idle for several years, and this development is a nice use. It brings in additional taxpayers to the area. They're spending money in our community, in our businesses, and creating additional tax revenues for the county, as well as potentially jobs. So I think this would be a good addition to our community. So yes, I am in favor of this. Thank you.
great, thank you.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Darlene Daly, and my residence is at 806 Hockett Road. My former residence as a child was 864 Hockett Road. So I've been there all my life.
Wow.
And I'm speaking in opposition because I would like for you to realize that although it sounds great for revenue for Goochland County, you're going to kill Hockett Road. The residents that are living on Hockett Road have been there all their life, basically. And to make it a 4-lane road, to have access for this development, the traffic that's going to incur because of this development, it's going to destroy our home, our community. I personally feel that Goochland has not looked upon Manikin for many, many years. And all of a sudden now, since West Creek was developed, Capital One was developed, now Manikin is a high profile. We like our community the way it is. 55 and up is great for H.H. Hunt, their revenue, but what are you going to do to us, the ones that are living there now that are already 55 and up? And that's the majority of what is on that road, 55 and up. Our traffic is heavy enough now. We can't get out now. to make it a 4-lane, you're destroying our homes, our children, our grandchildren's inheritance. And I am definitely along with the opposition. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Chairman and Board of Supervisors, my name is Richard Haynes. I live at 50 Fleetwood Lane, and I have been there a short time of 36 years. I remember when we first moved to Goochland, my wife taught at Randolph and has a lot of Goochland in her blood, that I could walk out to the intersection of 623 and Route 6 and stand there for 5 minutes and not see anything go by on Patterson River Road. And I wondered, why in the world did they 4-lane this thing with no traffic on it? And it was probably 5 minutes per vehicle on Hockett Road. Now, we knew development would come. And when West Creek was planned by our prince of gentlemen, C.B. Robertson, that we have to be thankful for to this day, I was an avid supporter of West Creek. And I have been for years. And by the way, the West Creek plan was a long-term plan. It was not short-term. And they never initially saw that it would develop quickly. They saw it as a very long-range plan. But the thing that got me most supporting it in the very beginning was the plan was for what kind of property? Non-residential. And to me, that was the key for Goochland County. Everyone in Goochland County is here for one of two reasons. Like our dear neighbor up at Hockett Road, Darlene, they've been here their whole life. Or like my wife and my family of 8 children and 4 grandchildren, we came here for one reason. We came here for the rural atmosphere. West Creek's whole plan, the greatness of that vision, was to lay out non-residential. And what breaks my heart is to see that already the camel's nose has gotten under the edge of the tent, and we've already have residential development in West Creek. And not only now with this development, by the way, H.H. Hunt is one of the premier developers in the nation. They're one of the best. And if we were to have somebody come, I'd say H.H. Hunt. And like other Fortune 500 companies that I have worked for and been an executive for, they have the best in attorneys. They have the best in representatives. They have the best of everything. Now, how do you and I, as normal folks, stand up to them?
Mr. Haynes, could you address the board, please? Thank you.
Huh?
I just prefer to hear what you're saying. Thank you.
So anyway, my number one concern is West Creek needs to stick to its original plan. And if we go to this 520 unit development, guess what? There's going to be another to follow it, and another, because there's precedent that's being set. No? I want to hear that. Okay, that'd be wonderful. I would invite all of you to come sit at the end of Fleetwood Lane, which is very close to Patterson. What's that, 1 minute? What does it mean? Who's flashing me?
It means if you
Come
please-
sit at the end of Fleetwood Lane and look at the traffic between 5 and 6 on a weekday. You can't get out. It's backed up almost a mile. It's back, Gary and Laura are my wonderful neighbors. And it's backed up way past their place, a quarter mile, and it sits there and it sits. And you cannot get eastbound on Patterson to 288. The traffic, I live 1 mile from West Creek to the west. I live 2 miles south of West Creek. And yet the traffic right now where I live is unbearable. The traffic, and you know, the major problem is 288 south, right? 288 bridge is the main problem, and that's a state issue. We have no idea when that's going to be solved. But my position is we cannot add to the problems we already have. The existing situation at the intersection of Hockett and 623 is totally unacceptable. You can say, yeah, it only lasts an hour or two a day, but that's an hour or two too much. So my number one thing is it's not in the original plan. We've got to stop residential development in West Creek. I have nothing against H.H. Hunt. It's the principle of taking a development that had a great vision for our county and changing that vision. So anybody that's coming in, H.H. Hunt or anybody else, they need to bring with them a plan for handling traffic needs way beyond the immediate development. They're affecting us 2 and 1 mile away. Right, Gary? Right, Laura? Right, Darlene? Everybody. Come and see what we have to live through at that intersection. It's
Mr. Haynes,
unacceptable.
could I ask you to kind of draw this to a conclusion out of
Okay.
consideration
All
for
right.
others that might want to speak?
So my position is, number one, no more residential development in West Creek. If they're coming, there needs to previously be, and part of the proffer needs to be a solution for traffic problems that exist already and way beyond what they are now. So take care of the traffic, then deal with the development. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Haynes.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Blanche Spencer. I live at 902 Hockett Road, Mannequin Sabbath. And it's a shame that we have to be, development is fine. Development is beautiful. But you're taking away from my heritage. I was born and raised in Mannequin Sabbath. My mother's still there. She's 88 years old. You taking something that she's going to pass down to me, away from me, to build a 4-lane highway. And I think that's unfair and unjust for me and all the residents that live on Hockett Road. Most of those people have the land that's there passed down from generation to generation. And that should be taken into consideration because families need to keep the heritage alive in Mannequin Sabbath. And as far as development, all these apartments, if you're going to build these apartments, 9 times out of 10, the people that live there can't afford them. Who's going to live in them? So y'all need to think more than one way. Think about your people first and development last. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My
Good
name
evening.
is Abidemi Craighead. I'm at 137 Art Road. My father, Garland Howell, I'm right attached to Hockett Road. I've been a resident over 50 years. He's a resident over 80 years of Goochland County. I'm a product of Goochland County. I went to all the schools as well as my children. I stand before you today to oppose the traffic. Is horrendous. If you could just do a visual, 95 North, you're trying to cross to get your mail out of the mailbox. You know how that traffic is. I know you all have traveled to D.C. That traffic, that's the way Hockett Road traffic is when I'm trying to get my mail. I mean, I have to dodge. And it's ridiculous. And I think we're all for growth. We know growth is real. But realistically, I think we need to look at other options. We have 288. Why not consider adding another lane to 288 to support that heavy traffic of, I think it's Carmax, Capital One, and other roads back there. That could take that traffic off of Hockett Road and put it back on 288. I work in the hospital setting, so I have seen traffic that when I come home from work, they're all trying to pop on to 288 a quicker way. And Hockett Road is not a quicker way. It's just a long backup of traffic. So again, if you all, again, like the gentleman said, if you have an opportunity to come out between 5 and 6 and count the cars as my aunts and my father has, you'd be amazed at the traffic that has now have produced because of all of these entities. And I hope that you would consider that. I mean, have someone to come out just to observe, actually observe what we're experiencing. And being a long-term resident of this county, I really hope that you would consider the residents what we're trying to say. Thank you for your time.
Great, thank you.
Good evening. I'm
Good
Tricia
evening.
Miller. I live at 909 Hockett Road, and I'm in complete agreement with my neighbors along Hockett Road with regard to making Hockett a 4-lane road. That section of Hockett, anyway, I feel like looking at Hockett from Tuckahoe Creek Parkway north to Broad, I can see that being a 4-lane road, but our section of Hockett will be devastated by that. The neighbors that live across the street from me will lose their yard. They will never be able to get out of their driveway. I feel strongly that most of the traffic that is impacting the situation at Patterson and Hockett is from Capital One. And my idea is that Capital One maybe should get involved and come up with a better solution for their people leaving at the end of every day. And perhaps it would be a ramp on Broad Branch onto 288. I don't know. I'm not a VDOT person, but I do feel like there's got to be a better way, and a better way for the people from Capital One to leave every day that does not involve them going west down Hockett to go east and get on 288 a little bit further than the rest of the traffic. I think that's the biggest problem. And so I do speak in opposition of this community. I think 520 homes in our section of Mannequin Sabot is an incredible insult to our county at this point. We are not ready for it. We are just not ready for it. I think really from many aspects, but most certainly from the road aspect. We just do not have the road infrastructure in place, and that many houses, I don't care if they're all 55 and they only travel between 10 and 2, it's going to impact the traffic. And that's all I have to say.
All right, well, thank you, Ms. Miller.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Beth Hungate. I live at 923 Hockett Road, and I'm in opposition also. Every day I get off from work and come home and can't get my mail until the next day, or wait till it's dark to cross Hockett Road 55 mile an hour with dodging traffic. It's my children now that I'm concerned about, because I have a daughter who's now starting to drive, and I'm petrified every time she comes out of our driveway. What she's encountering. Adding 500 plus units of housing is just going to impact that even worse. It changes my entire lifestyle. I have children who do after-school activities that I need to pick up from their activities, and I can't do that without managing my time, adding 45 extra minutes because I have to go down my own road and wait because of Capital One and all the other traffic that's sitting on Hockett Road trying to get onto Patterson to get on to 288. And it's safety, it's incredibly dangerous for me, and now my neighbors, my children, and also the people that come down the road that are driving. And adding these houses is going to do nothing but compound that. So I am also in opposition. Thank you.
Good, thank you. Yes, sir.
Mr. Peterson, my name is Gifford Hampshire, and I'm representing a number of people, and I was referred to earlier, some people who have yielded their time to me.
Okay, Gifford.
And I have
I think we have two so far.
Two, and I also have Mr. Gardner, who's at 410 Cobblestone Circle, and Temple Bay, and this lady as well.
Well, I think I mentioned earlier, we're going to cap the number at 4.
Okay.
We'll
all
give
right.
you a total of 10 minutes.
10 minutes,
And
all
I
right.
need each of them to come up and give their name and address and the fact that they're yielding their
All right.
2 minutes to you, if you don't mind. Thank you.
Well, while they're doing that, I have a disc that I'd like to give to the clerk.
Fair enough, thank you.
My name is William Garner, 46 Cobblestone Circle.
Mr. Garner, if you'll hold just a second, we'll make sure our clerk
Yielding my 3 minutes.
No, if you'll hold for just a second, I want to make sure we get your name and address into the record here.
William Garner, Cobblestone Circle. 46 Cobblestone Circle.
Great, thank you. Thank you.
There were 3 minutes for Joe Wallace, who was a separate designee. So 3 of us were giving 9 minutes to give, and one. Oh, I'm sorry. Yes. Okay. Great. Yes. Thank you.
My name is Catherine Bradley, and I live at 703 Mannequin Road. But my property is at 717 Mannequin Road and extends to Hockett Road.
Great, thank you.
I give my 3 minutes.
Thank you, thank you.
My name is Temple Bayless. I live at 1114 Dover Road in Mannequin-Sabot, and I'm yielding the time I can to the council.
Great, thank you so much. So I think you've probably maxed out at this point, Mr.
Yes, I think
Gifford.
I've got
and,
more than sufficient, and I
and
appreciate it.
So
Yeah.
you have the 10 minutes, and we'll get that started here in just a second.
All right.
And you had a disc also that you...
Yes. And I'm searching for the control of how to move it. While that is coming up, I do also want to join Ms. Cassini in offering my clients and my condolences for the passing of Mr. Creasy, and do recognize, as she did, how difficult this evening is, and have heard what a great man he was.
Great, thank you for that.
Okay. Should I start? Okay, thank you.
Is that your first slide?
Yes, ma'am. Okay.
Okay, this is for 10 minutes?
10 minutes, yes.
Okay, well, thank you very much. Again, my name is Gifford Hampshire. I'm an attorney from Northern Virginia, and I'm down here in Goochland County for the second time now. I was here before you in December, and I know the county attorney from local government attorneys circles, and so I appreciate your hospitality. There's been a lot of conversation here, but I think I don't want to get something very important to get lost in the details of this discussion, and it's right in your staff report on page 7, Agenda Packet 33, and some speakers have referred to it. And that is the very basic fact that this proposed development is not in compliance with your own comprehensive plan. That's something that you all should not take lightly. You have developed this comprehensive plan with some effort. Mr. Haynes referred to the fact that consistent with this comprehensive plan, this area has developed as prime economic development. And I submit to you that you should not allow an individual rezoning application to drive your comprehensive plan, especially when that rezoning application is not accompanied by a comprehensive plan amendment, as often localities do, where you would have the time to consider not only the details of this rezoning proposal, but also the merits of an individual comprehensive plan amendment. And as I said in my recent letter to you, to allow an individual business decision to drive your comprehensive plan is a big mistake, because it allows the zoning to get ahead of the planning. And as Mr. Haynes said earlier, it's a problem not only for this particular development, but also for the whole area, because it sets a precedent, as he said, whereby it will be very difficult for the board to deny future residential rezonings that are also inconsistent with the comprehensive plan. Localities, as the county attorney will tell you, are on sound footing if they stick to their own comprehensive plan, or if they want to change that plan, they process a comprehensive plan amendment along with it that is justifiable, that looks at the broader vision of the county and not just react to this particular proposal. We start with that aspect. Now, as your own staff report says, and this should also not get lost, this rezoning proposal is a problem, not only because it's not in compliance with your own comprehensive plan, but because it does not meet code requirements for the stacking of and tapering of Broad Branch Drive, and because there are unaddressed items in the transportation impact analysis. Now, we learned tonight that as of 5 p.m., 2 hours approximately before the start of this meeting, we got some answers to that. We don't know what those answers are because, as Ms. Hunter said, there hasn't understandably been time to address those. But I think that for that reason alone, you should defer this application to allow those answers to be studied. I submit that it would be irresponsible for you to pass this rezoning, to grant this rezoning, where you don't know what whether those problems that have been identified by your own staff, whether those have been addressed or not. There's a whole nother reason, though, why this application is inconsistent with your own comprehensive plan. There's been a lot of talk about the east-west collector. But what I show you up here is a diagram of another collector and how it relates to the proposed development, and that's the north-south collector. There's been a lot of testimony from the Hockett Road residents about their concern about the impact on Hockett Road and the fact that it might be widened and taking away their inheritance and affecting their quality of life. And the very last lady from Hockett Road to speak said there has to be another way, there has to be another alternative. Well, there is, and it's in your own comprehensive plan. And that alternative is called the north-south collector. And that is depicted here in magenta, and overlaid is the West Creek development. And this has been done by E.D. Lewis, our engineers. And it shows how this development basically impedes the north-south collector. It makes it impossible, effectively, to do. And therefore, this rezoning proposal makes a choice between two alternative alignments. Where the county's not making that choice, this developer's making that choice for the county, should the county grant this rezoning. And that is, we're going to go west to Hockett Road instead of following our own comprehensive plan and planning for the north-south collector. And there was discussion in this, by Ms. Hunter about the fact that there was a stub road that was provided. That, I submit, is not equivalent to the north-south collector, which was envisioned as a 4-lane major collector road that would provide relief from the Hockett Road problem and certainly from the Capital One problem. And we submit, for those two reasons, that this reason and also the basic land use designation reason, this proposal is inconsistent with the comprehensive plan, and that's a big deal. That's a big deal that this board should pay attention to. It's interesting that in an earlier version of the staff report, and what I've got up here is a copy of a March 8 letter that my client sent to the Board of Supervisors, and pointing out that the major thoroughfare plan in 2005 supports the north-south collector with an alternative alignment. And that very language was used in a previous version of the staff report. In the current staff report, the staff report only says that that is identified. But it does not give the north-south collector justice. It is a road that has been fully supported by the comprehensive plan, and again, it should not be brushed aside by an individual rezoning. Indeed, the September 1, 2017 staff report at pages 5 through 6 said that the preferred location for a stub road is to the south, where there are large landlocked parcels that need interconnectivity. And that at that time, the proposed road ties into Broad Branch, but does not facilitate connectivity further south to West Creek Parkway. The current stub road also dead ends into the Stern-Ehrenstein property and does not facilitate interconnectivity. That should be a goal of the board. And I fully understand that we are all constrained in local government by the current proffer legislation. It is difficult to secure or even to suggest proffers for these kinds of roads. However, it is equally true that the board has the discretion to deny applications that are inconsistent with its comprehensive plan, or at least defer those applications to allow for further study. And this gets me to another point, and that is, in only about 2 weeks from now, on March 27, the board has scheduled a work session on review of its 2005 transportation plan, its management transportation plan, which should, among other things, discuss which of the two alignments, which of the two north-south alignments are preferable. Should it be the north-south collector, or should it be the Hockett Road north-south collector? Why on earth would the board cut that discussion short by effectively granting a rezoning application that curtails or eliminates one of those options without having that discussion in a comprehensive manner? But that's exactly what you would do if you approved this rezoning tonight, instead of at least deferring it, if not denying it for inconsistency with a comprehensive plan. As you know, when I was before you in December, we talked about a broad branch connector that we were proposing across my client's property, and we only needed a little stub from West Creek to get to 288. We hear this very evening from Kimley Horn that connector is actually recommended. And we don't know, well, we also know from from Ms. Hunter that we don't have a response. We don't think we have a response from the applicant, although we did hear from Ms. Cassini tonight that they are doing nothing apparently to prohibit that. But as Mr. Peterson indicated in his questioning, nor are they doing anything to facilitate it. My clients are prepared to offer right-of-way to the county to make this happen. And we think it would be responsible for the applicant to at least reserve that area, meaning it can't be used for anything else, for future dedication, if not dedicated completely, to make that happen, because that's the alternative to what's happening with the North-South Collector. I see my light is flashing, and I want to reserve the rest of my time to Mr. Wallace, who's our traffic engineer.
All right, thank you.
Good evening. Joe Wallace, John Davenport Engineering, 16003 Continental Boulevard, South Chesterfield, Virginia. Mr. Chairman, board members, I represent the landowners south of the proposed project. I guess I cannot come to you tonight and have as much passion as you have heard from the residents, because I don't live along Hockett Road or in Goochland. I have done many studies here. I have...
Ms. Givens, could we allow him the full 3 minutes, since I don't believe he was one of the ones that yielded his time? You were not...
Gifford gave some of his time, so.
Yes, but you didn't yield your time to Mr. Gifford, did you?
I did not.
Then let's give him the 3 minutes and we'll go from there. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, sir. I've done many studies in Goochland. I go back as far as West Creek in the planning of that project. And to say that, yes, the studies have been done. The study was done for this development. And yes, VDOT has accepted that study. But that's one study. How many more studies are we going to look at as one here, one here, one here? It's the sum of the parts that have gotten you where you are today. And I know one resident referred to, we've already got it residential in West Creek. It's there. And it's located adjacent to one of the intersections that is shown to fail today. And that's Broad Branch and West Creek Parkway. If we add this development and we don't have another connection to West Creek, then all the traffic is going to funnel into an already congested intersection that is trying to get to 288. And those are the issues today. So when the next one comes, the next development comes, the next development comes, if you look at them one at a time and not on a big picture as needs to be done, because West Creek is only a third built out, and Cap 1, they're about half built out. And so you see what you have today. What comes after that without study that takes into a comprehensive study of how to keep this traffic going to where it wants to go is 288, and not using secondary routes that are primarily residential, that should be your goal. And the only way you're going to do that is to stop, put the people into the room, tell them to come out with an answer. And that will come with a deferral. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to come forward?
My name is Patricia Hendy, and I live on 2337 Wheatlands. I'm sorry about Mr. Creasy. What I'd like to say is that West Creek, I'm I'm not going to talk about roads, I'm not going to talk about crowding, but it was an economic engine. It was developed for corporate headquarters, for businesses. It was a hope that we were sold. It was not created, the vision was not for neighborhoods. I think if you stay focused on what it is, especially now at this point in time when we have, economically, we have the wind at our back and there's cash is in people's pockets to invest in headquarters and expand their businesses, you're going to see that just like H.H. Hunt saw how attractive our location was, how wonderful Goochland is, businesses are going to find us. And Henrico's getting built out. So West Creek is still there. It's still available for an economic engine. But if you start putting swimming pools, apartments, residential neighborhoods, it's not going to be as appealing. And H.H. Hunt wants to take a big bite out of the apple because look at where they're locating, right near the interchange, where the businesses are going to need the access to their markets to north and south. And frankly, who would blame H.H. Hunt for wanting to be here? But there's other land in Goochland, but West Creek was made to be a business park, not a neighborhood. Oh, thank you for your time.
Thank you, Pat.
My name is Ed Haddock. My primary address is 656 Interlochen Drive, Orlando, Florida, actually Winter Park, Florida. And my Goochland address is behind the Richmond Country Club on a dirt road with a pond that doesn't have a house number. But I grew up in Richmond, and all of my greatest memories were the time I spent on that pond back behind the Richmond Country Club on the 100 acres that my father owned there. And I remember when 288 was coming in, they took part of our property to create the intersection that we're all now talking about getting into. And it wasn't too long after that I got a call from C.B. Robertson, who I didn't know, asking to buy the property. And I explained to him that I had no real use for it, but my father, who was then retired, enjoyed fishing there, and I couldn't sell it out from under him. And CB liked that. He invited me to Richmond. He took me into his secret war room and showed me all of the drawings and maps of West Creek that he was going to create here in Goochland County. And he became a great friend, kept up with him through the years. I think he did a beautiful development. I think West Creek is a really beautiful development. It was intended to be a business park. And I'm sorry we lost C.B. Robertson a few weeks ago. It seems to me there is a serious traffic problem there, and it seems like every report we've seen indicates there is. It sounds like this is an attractive project that's being proposed there. It sounds like it's not introducing a new problem, but it's worsening an old problem. And I think it has an opportunity to facilitate the solutions to the problem it will add incrementally and to the problem we already have. We haven't mentioned the 60 acres of multifamily that's going to start renting up in a few weeks right around the corner coming to the same intersection. So there is a really serious traffic problem there. I think that deferring this, that allowing the study about the traffic plan, which is going to start soon, is really a compelling alternative that ought to be considered. We volunteered our property as a solution, and we'll stand by that. I think is documented that if Goochland County sees that this problem can be solved by coming through our property, we'll dedicate that easement. Undoubtedly, my grandchildren or great-grandchildren might benefit from that financially, but that's not the reason I'm offering it. It's not going to benefit me in my lifetime, I don't think. but it is available, and I would just encourage the board to give this a little time, study the traffic, find a solution. I think the applicant would be willing to accommodate, and I think there are accommodations there that that can save Hockett Road and avoid the kind of impacts that are troubling to so many of the people here. So thank you.
Good. Thank you, Mr. Haddock. Anyone else like to come forward?
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Preston Lloyd with the firm of Williams Mullen on behalf of the applicant. I'd ask the clerk if we could be permitted to put up the very last slide of our previous presentation before I proceed.
Okay, so if you just bear with us, we'll try and do that for you.
Thanks so much. And I'll refer to that in a moment, but to begin, thank you, Ms. Hunter.
And just to be clear, you're not coming forward as a citizen, you're coming
I'm
forward
not.
as
This
a
is
rebuttal
the
for
rebuttal of
HHS.
the applicant.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Are you going to the slide you want, right?
I beg your pardon?
Are you going to the slide?
I believe we're still on the other deck.
This was Ms. Gifford's deck.
Bear with me, we have some quite a few PowerPoints here, and they're overlapping each other.
While we're waiting on the presentation to come up, the overwhelming theme that you've heard in terms of the concerns raised by the folks who spoke during the citizens' comment period related to traffic. And I think the real question before the board, as we, the applicant, understand it, is there's concern about the potential impact of this project, but what does it offer in terms of solutions? And there's been a suggestion made that there's a lot of impact here that doesn't have any corresponding offset. And as we understand it, there's really three different considerations related to the traffic. First, there is the TIA, the Transportation Impact Analysis, that was performed and that received some comments from Kimley Horn. And as you received belatedly today at 5 p.m., our traffic consultant responded to each of those. And I want to highlight those briefly because without going into further detail, the comments that came back from Kimley Horn used words like verify, confirm, update queuing results, update crash analysis. It was really factual inquiries that were recommended, and that allowed our consultant, who is Eric Strohacker with Greenlight Solutions, who's available for questions should you prefer a deeper dive on any of the transportation analysis. And he was able to do that analysis. And in the end, he concluded, as the document that was belatedly submitted to you confirms, in each of the 6 items, there was no update or revision needed to his recommendations, that ultimately there was no profferable, and by that I mean there was no improvement that the applicant under law would be able to proffer in order to mitigate any new impacts that were yielded in his update to the study. I say 5 out of the 6 because in one instance that I'm going to refer to in more detail, there is potentially an opportunity for the applicant to do something that does positively affect this area. And before I refer to that, I'm going to refer to one of the pictures that was put up by, I believe it was Mr. Hampshire, who showed that the proposal here would preclude the opportunity for the north-south connector that's a part of the 2005 thoroughfare plan. If you'll recall our presentation in December, we actually had a superimposed plan on top of our project that showed that it's actually located to the west of our project. So it does not preclude that in any way. And in fact, the folks who spoke from Hockett who are concerned that this is going to result in a 4-lane highway being put in for Hockett Road, that's also a misunderstanding of the proposal before you. Instead, all this does is say that in the event that Hockett Road, the demand does justify the need for greater right-of-way, then the applicant is willing to dedicate that at no cost to the county, and that's one of the proffers before you. But our transportation impact analysis does not suggest that there's going to be a need for that facility. again, going back to the sixth of the five, excuse me, the last of the 6 recommendations that we have the ability to impact, our traffic consultant looked at the comment from Kimley Horn that said, once all analyses are updated, it's recommended that the overall intersection delay be used to evaluate potential cost sharing of a proposed traffic signal at the Hockett Road and Tuckahoe Creek Parkway intersection. And based on our engineer's analysis, the site contributes approximately 3.6% and 2.5% of the total traffic needed to meet warrants at the 2 intersections that are highlighted there. So in plain speaking, what does that mean? It means that the traffic engineers are said that there's not a warrant for a light today, but there may be in the future. And so the question is, what can this project do to help mitigate that future impact? And the answer is that we can contribute up to the corresponding percentage of the traffic that will be coming from this project to that intersection as a additional cash proffer. So if you'll bear with me just a moment, I'm going to fast forward to a slide at the end of our deck. In summary here, you see that there's a contributing percentage of 3.6 and 2.5 for the 2 intersections that are currently failing, that everyone agrees is an unacceptable condition today. So again, back to that theme that I mentioned, what can this project do to help what's already a problem for this community? And the answer is, in addition to all of the cash proffers that we're offering for transportation, in addition to all of the right-of-way that we're willing to dedicate for future improvements that the county's future 2005 facilities plan recommends, we can actually contribute a portion of the signalization costs that the county will someday bear. And so we would be willing to increase the transportation proffer beyond what was presented to you in the staff report by a total of $15,250 over the 520 homes in order to offset that potential impact. It's one of the many ways that the county will benefit, in addition to the operational costs, the tax revenue, all the other sources of revenue that were described by both the staff report and the applicant's presentation. We think that this is a positive contribution to the county. It allows for greater economic development to be unlocked in West Creek, which is why the residential is proposed, and it'll do so in an area where there's existing infrastructure. So we respectfully request the county approve this evening, not defer it for further study. We won't foreclose any future opportunities for connectivity should it be required or deemed necessary in the county's future studies, and we welcome any questions that the board members may have. Thank you for your consideration.
Okay, thank you for that. Board, any questions? Okay, we'll reserve the right to call you back up if need be.
Are we able to rebuttal? Are we able to rebuttal on that?
We don't close the public hearing yet, do we?
I just have one comment.
But she's always talked, right? The public.
1 minute is a rebuttal.
The public hearing is still open, but I believe you've already used your 3 minutes for this evening.
Can I use my husband's? 806 Hockey Road. Give me mine.
If you'd like to come forward.
We gotta go home tonight. Okay, I'll give it back. Darlene Daly, 806 Hockey Road, using my husband, John Daly. He's also 806 Hockett Road as of tonight.
So far.
This is a neighbor.
My name is Gertrude Wood at 800 Hockett Road, and I give my time up to Darlene as well.
I think that was a total insult, what you just gave us. You want to pay.
Please speak to the board. Thank you.
You want to pay $15,000 to give us a traffic light. You're not considering 15, 20 homes on Hockett Road. We can get a traffic light at Patterson, and the normal way to get a traffic light, normally in any area, is to wait for somebody to die. We can get a traffic light, we just got to wait for the person to die, whoever that may be. I think that was an insult to the residents of not only Mannequin community, but to Goochland County, to offer a traffic light
There are many intersections in the Goochland County area that needs a traffic light. I'm highly upset about that. I really am. And I hope that the members here on this board, I don't know you, I really don't know you. I look at your names and I wonder, are you really from Goochland County? Because the majority of us that are in opposition here, I don't know, the majority of us that live on that Mannequin Road, we are longtime residents. And I'm very upset about our traffic light to consider that my home, my land that I cut and mow and mulch and raise my babies on is in place of a traffic light. You need to think about that when you present that to another board anywhere. That's my comment.
Thank you very much. The public hearing is still open. Does anyone like to come forward? Seeing none, we'll go ahead and close the public hearing. Board, questions?
Mr. Chair, I would just like to get clarification on Hockett Road and the plan for a 4-lane road. It's my understanding that in our long-range plan or long-range planning, just based on pure natural development numbers over a span of 20, 25, 30 years, that Hockett Road may require widening to 4 lanes. I don't know if a 4-lane is a component of this, and I just wanted to get clarification maybe from staff if that's...
Ms. Hunter, I guess the question, if come forward.
It seems like we've had a lot of comments on we're going to turn Hockett Road into a 4-lane road, and I don't believe that's the case at all. I think that certainly from a land use planning perspective in our long-range county plans, like in all the roads, there would be improvements to those roads in 30, 40 years.
The 25-year CIP, which was adopted by the board a few months ago, does have a project in there to expand Hockett Road for a 4-lane road. That's been in our major thoroughfare plan since 2005. The applicant, as part of this development, did provide the right-of-way for that planned expansion along their portion of the road that fronts on Hockett Road. But the widening of Hockett Road is not based on the Hunt development.
Right. So it is in the 25-year plan. Do we know where it is in the 25 years? Is it 5, 10, 15, 20?
It was one of the later outer bands.
Mr. Chairman, I brought my
25-year
CIP,
plan?
25-year plan.
Thank you for being
And,
prepared for me.
Well, because I knew this was going to be an issue, and the project is called Hockett Road, Patterson Avenue to Tuckahoe Creek Parkway. It's a $13 million project, and it would kick in year 2026 is when it would, you know, we all know how VDOT projects start, so it probably won't, it might not happen in my lifetime, but that's when it would start. Now, one of the questions that I had was it shows federal funding of $3.2 million, private funding of $3.2 million, and local funding of $6.5 million, more or less. And my question was, what is that private funding?
The private, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
The private funding would be the value of the right-of-way donated through development so that it didn't have to be purchased as part of the project.
But again, this plan, and I asked a question earlier that I think kind of said, this plan was done without considering this neighborhood, this proposed 520 homes.
The 4-lane of Hockett Road's been in the major thoroughfare plan since 2005, yes, prior to
I
this
mean, we
development.
finished this actually before they completed before we completed the capital impact model. So our thought was that the current situation, which we know, I mean, it sounds like it's a real bad issue already with people having to dodge traffic to get the mail and everything. So that's already an issue. And we already know it. We've put it in our plan, in our 25-year plan. So yeah, I think your point, I think we're going to have to do something with that road, whether this development goes in or not. I think that's kind of the point of it being in our plan. Whether that road is Hockett or some parallel road, we have to do something already. And I have taken that road in the evenings, so I know how the backup is. So the other question I had, if I may, Mr. Chairman.
Sure.
Related to this is that east-west connector.
And if before you go to that,
Yep,
if we do know that Hockett Road is a concern. With the major thoroughfare plan, there was actually a specific task in there to look at this area to see how we can address transportation concerns, so.
So the east-west connector is not in our plan, correct? I mean, I don't remember seeing anything.
There is a statement in the 2035 comp plan for an east-west connector. No road has been identified on any maps, no.
I think that's it for now.
Okay. Mr. Minnick, were you mid-stride on your
Yeah, I just
comments?
wanted to,
Okay.
right, I just, because that, again, seemed like a very prominent question that I just wanted to get clarified so that we were operating on the same playing field.
Ms. Lasclat?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. All right, so Ms. Hunter, the Kimley Horn reports, page 64 and 65, that report talks about, and correct me if I'm wrong, current conditions. It says current conditions, both Hockett Road at Patterson and Tuckahoe Creek at Capital One.
Right, so this particular document that you're looking at is them looking at the two additional roadways that was not included in the TIA scope. So this was specifically looking at Hockett and Patterson and Capital One and Tuckahoe Creek Parkway. So if you look at the categories, if you're looking at the chart on page 11, I'm sorry, I don't have this in my slide deck to bring up. But when it shows 2017 existing, that's current conditions. 2025 is background, that is existing conditions and 2%. The 2025 build is with this development, and then the 2025 build plus pending, that includes the Bristol Apartments and Hardywood.
Okay. So the level of services, Mr. Chair, level of services are in the PM, peak hour, EFFF, and then on Tuckahoe Creek, Ds. So this, but again, just so I'm clear, this is existing, and then, like you say, the 2025 was with the Bristol.
Yes, so there's already transportation issues prior to this development. It gets slightly worse when you add in, background traffic and other proposed development in this one. But this intersection is failing right now today.
Right. And so, this project, what do we have in mitigating factors to help this? I'm not sure I'm totally clear on that.
To help with the
Level of
Patterson and Hockett intersection.
All of them.
With this one, this clearly had stated when they looked at these two additional intersections, their concerns with these roads, but this specific development did not put any significant additional degradation. They're already suffering through capacity and level of service. They've offered the transportation proffer for each unit, which will help towards traffic improvements as we improve roads in that area. But no other improvements are being proposed by this development. And again, there is road issues prior to this development.
Sure,
Mr. Chairman.
Continue.
So, Ms. Hunter, I know when we look at the impacts of traffic impacts from a residential development, and we, words aren't coming to me, temper it with 55 plus.
Yes.
Right? Now, a lot of people 55 years old are still working, and two people maybe in the household both working. So is this like an accepted transportation? It just seems really light to me based on who might be in that home.
The way VDOT analyzes and the International Trip Generation book analyzes an age-restricted development is about 60% of the number of cars as a resident of a typical residential unit. Most residential units are create about 10 trips per day, where they say an age-restricted generates about 0.4 or 4 trips per day. And that is, an accepted model by VDOT and how it was prepared by the engineer. That is an appropriate way to analyze it. And the reason is, while they may be working and they may have, people living in the home, they are not thought to travel as often during the peak hours of 8 to 9 or 7 to 8 in the morning or 5 to 6 in the evening. They may travel, at different times of the day. But that is, a national standard. That's not unique to this development. That's for all age-restricted developments.
Does that answer your question? I guess they're
I don't have to
attributing.
like it.
I guess they're attributing some of the trips to children-driven trips, where you soccer or whatever, after-school activities. Ms. Minnick?
Yeah, I just wanted to get to the east-west corridor and the north-south corridor just for a second. Do both of those potential corridors also promote growth, residential growth? Assuming that you have, now what we don't have in the plan is an east-west corridor. We just kind of mentioned that there might be something, but we don't really indicate in our thoroughfare plan that there will be an east-west corridor or connector. And then the north-south connector, does it do the same thing, also promote additional residential growth?
Well, a connector would do a number of things. A connector would, give another transportation alternative to move traffic off of one road to another. However, whenever you have new roads, that typically generates new growth as well.
So if we put up the picture of the east-west, north-south connector, wherever that is.
I think we're in the wrong slide deck.
Yeah.
You wait just a
So you could in essence say, okay, so we're setting the stage for exactly what the residents are talking about, more growth by adding the east-west, north-south connector.
It would do both. I think it would relieve traffic and provide an opportunity for new growth, which could add more traffic.
Okay, so is it better to relieve traffic or, I guess it's a false choice, but is it better to relieve traffic or is it better to open it up for more potential development long-term, where you would then need a 4-lane Hockett Road additionally?
Yeah, and I think, the only thing we could say, as each development came in, we would have a traffic impact analysis and review it and to see what the impacts are on the road network are.
Does that answer your question, Mr. Minnick, or? Okay.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think the answer, you want me to tell you, are you testing me?
No, no.
I think the answer is, yes, it opens it up for development, and yes, it improves traffic flow. And, you know, which one comes first? So if the east-west connector is built, then in theory, you'll be opening it up for development, for expanded development long before you really help that road. I mean, the road obviously would help traffic flow, but at a minor degree to what you'd be opening up for future development. That's what I consider to be the answer, but I could be wrong.
Okay. Ms. Laskinen, I'm going to jump in for real quick.
Yeah, go ahead.
You've indicated that some intersections are already failing or some roads. What does VDOT say? They have responsibility for maintaining these roads and a level of service. What are they saying? Are they going to do anything to address the situation? Do we know?
Other than the traffic light that we're all waiting for at Patterson and West Creek Parkway, which is going to be a couple years away, BDOT doesn't have any road improvement plans. The county is doing a number of different things. We're doing the major thoroughfare plan. We're going to be looking at the study. We're doing an interchange justification for 288. So the county is definitely trying to be proactive, but there's no funding on any other road projects in this area other than some improvements to 288 and then the traffic light.
Okay, so VDOT doesn't have any plans to address the current situation? Okay. Ms. Laskinen?
VDOT does have some funding for the Hockett and Broad, which is further north from here, but
Okay.
a little much further.
Okay. Ms. Laskinen?
I have two questions. Typically, residential growth rooftops attracts retail. So around this project, are there opportunities for retail development that, already zoned, or what's around?
Yeah, if you look at the comprehensive plan, I'm going to get back
Sure.
to that, please. Most of the area, Hockett Road is sort of a dividing line. Everything on the, that's the zoning map, so that would be good to show you, or the comp plan map, either one. So this is basically generally Hockett Road, and then Hockett Road jumps over here. But everything to the east is currently zoned M1 and part of the West Creek proffers. In the West Creek development, you can do anything, any uses in the M1, M2, or any commercial use, or any B1, B2, or B3 use. So there would be some potential for retail, definitely around the interchanges would be attractive for retail. If you look at the land use plan, which I'm going to go to the next slide. It's not responding to me. But the land use plan, I can't get it to go back, but it's generally low-density residential over in this area.
Right.
The retail opportunities would be in the West Creek portion.
Then that would also impact traffic.
Yes.
Okay. And my second?
There we go. There's the, there's the comprehensive plan, so you can see everything on the other side. The prime economic development generally follows the M1 zoning. The yellow is residential. The green is the golf course. Right. So really no retail opportunities for the west side of Hockett.
They are the east.
Yes.
And what road would that primarily impact in that area would be?
This would be Tuckahoe Creek Parkway.
Right.
And Broad Branch is down here.
Right.
So the new apartments and Hardywood are located down in this area.
Okay. That makes sense. And my next question is, we're meeting on March 27th to do the thoroughfare plan, and that will include this area as well?
The major thoroughfare plan is about a 6-month process. The county's been working on it internally for about 3 or 4 months now. The first
Thank you.
public meeting will be on March 27th. That is a public meeting. It's held here in this building from 6 to 8. Ask people who have these traffic concerns to please come to that meeting so we can hear your concerns and incorporate them into our major thoroughfare plan. Our anticipated approval and moving that through the process for the board to take action on that major thoroughfare plan is going to occur. Generally, we hope to have it before the Planning Commission in May and the board in June for adoption. So again, this first meeting is, somewhat still early in the process to review the data with the citizens, some of the road projections and road improvements that would be part of the recommendations of that MTP, get the citizen feedback, make revisions, and then bring it to the Planning Commission and board.
Mr. Minnick?
Yeah, Joanne, just quickly, so when I'm looking at, so we have about 2,000 plus or minus acres of developable land remaining in West Creek?
I believe it was 2,600 acres, I believe,
Okay,
yeah.
26, yeah. And so this is approximately 200?
208,
give or take, so that's, I guess that works out rough. I'm just trying to get the size of, so we'll use about 10, this is proposing to use about 8 or 10% of that.
I didn't do the math, but I
Okay.
trust you.
I think it's about, I think my number's close. So 90% of the prime economic development land remains in West Creek with this proposal.
Yes, sir.
Ms. Hunter?
Yes.
The land south of this project, how is that? That's also prime economic development, but is it zoned M1 or is it zoned A2?
Well, actually, the land south is a mix, Mr. Alvarez, I'm sorry. A portion of it is prime economic development, a portion of it is single-family low density, and a portion is office, no retail. The clicker is not responding very well, but it has a a variety of zoning, but most of it is A2. It would require a rezoning for any sort of dense development.
Is it in West Creek? Is it in the Tuckahoe Creek?
The property immediately to the south, which is still gray, is in West Creek, but beyond that is not.
So this.
I'm sorry, I can't get this to advance.
In the
That's
Tuckahoe Creek?
Yes, that's in the Tuckahoe Creek Service
And it's
District.
in West Creek.
Yes.
It's not in West Creek, but it is in the district.
Okay.
It's not in West Creek, but
There we go. It finally came up. Okay, so the purple is the West Creek and M1.
not West Creek.
And then the property to the south is A2 and is not part of West Creek. That's correct. I think the battery's dying.
Other thoughts? I've got a few if you want you're up there.
I was about to sit down.
No,
Not yet.
not time to fade to black yet. The orange, that's Kinlock, and that's residential, it's PUD.
RPUD, yes, sir.
And then, as I recall, the HCA emergency room is due east by that cul-de-sac, is that right there?
Mm-hmm.
So this age restricted would be in some proximity to their emergency needs, if you will.
Yeah, it would
And then
up
the sheltering arms hospital, that's going to be further up north. That's,
Yes. I might have it, no, it's just
Not
off
quite.
of this map. Would be just in this area up here on the east side of 288, just off the map.
okay. While you have this up, obviously, we all heard very loud and clear from citizens that traffic concerns need to be acknowledged and addressed here in some fashion. The north-south collector, for lack of a better term, that we, if Hockett Road were to continue straight rather than curve off to the west, does this development preclude Hockett from continuing on straight down south as opposed to curving off to the west?
It would make it very difficult, yes.
The easement and the 45-foot easement, where is that? Is that on the west side of this property?
If you look on the screen behind you, they are providing right-of-way from this portion from Tuckahoe Creek to where Hockett Road curves. That's where they'd be offering the right-of-way.
Okay, so there would be the easement to take it, Hockett, to widen Hockett by this.
On that portion of the roadway,
But what
yes.
about taking it further south? Would this preclude that?
It would, if it was to be a road that's treated like Hockett, if it was just a connecting point between north and south, they have a L-shaped road with a stub road here. Yeah, it's not a collector road, it's a neighborhood road that provides connectivity. But it would be very difficult. You then would be putting all of the right-of-way to keep this straight along the back of these properties. And then you'd have, a single-loaded road. You'd be building a road that could only be single-loaded because this side would already be developed. It would be very difficult to do a north-south connector in that manner.
And there's been no easement dedicated on the southern part of this?
No.
See, I think just big picture for me, one of the concerns that I've heard from citizens is that in that gray area where Cap One and CarMax and those folks, that there's the roadways that are in West Creek, at least during some parts of the day, are insufficient for the egress and regress of the folks that are in there, and there's potential for that to spill over. And I think that spillover is going to create some pressure on that road that would not otherwise be there. So obviously, one way to address the spillover and take some of the pressure off Hockett would be to fix the existing problems within West Creek so the traffic was able to flow egress and regress onto 288 or Route 6 in an easier fashion without having to spill over onto Hockett or some of the other roads in the county. And I know VDOT is aware of this because we brought it up to them, and I know they've got some potential long-term solutions, like widening 288, adding a third lane. I guess one of the other problems they're having on 288 is the acceleration lanes are very short. So you've got 30-mile-an-hour traffic pulling onto the highway, which everybody hits the brakes at that point, and you've got to slow down. So if they extended their acceleration lanes and the traffic moved more smoothly, obviously you wouldn't have the stop in traffic there. So some extension of acceleration lanes, some widening of 288, select traffic lights to keep traffic moving, right turn lanes, those kinds of things. If they were able to do some of those things within West Creek and take some of that pressure off and take some of the spillover off, that presumably would lighten up the pressure on Hockett. However, it may not be the solution in itself, but perhaps something else north-south that could, if you had another, that's why I asked about going straight. If you added a 2-lane straight and had the other 2 lanes still there, then you don't need the 4-lane on the existing Hockett. It would take some of the pressure off residents there too. So these are all ways to take pressure off, limit the spillover, have West Creek traffic come and go through West Creek and not through the rest of the county. That's going to take some time working with VDOT to do that. The build-out on this property, the full effect of this won't be felt for 8 years, 5 to 10 years?
I think their plans showed homes in 2022, and they hoped for an 8-year build-out, so possibly 2030.
So the build-out would be 5 to 10 years? It was a, depends on market. So we don't know what VDOT's going to be able to accomplish over the next 8 years before the full effect is felt. That's anybody's guess. But we heard loud and clear from the citizens that 4-lane, if we can do things to take the pressure off. Now, also, Mr. Minnick has mentioned longer term, you know, something may have to be done. But shorter term, are there things that we can do to relieve pressure and at least buy some time, if nothing else? Also, I heard a concern about this being precedent setting, and Ms. McGee, would you weigh in on that? Would this be precedent setting if we went forward or didn't go forward? Would this set a precedent either way?
It is long held, a principle of law that real estate is unique. And because of that, the development plans for particular pieces of real estate are considered to be unique. And so while someone could later say, well, you know, there was another piece here that went residential, that was a piece that you may decide went residential for reasons very specific to it. For instance, perhaps the shape of this parcel doesn't prevent some large industrial user nearby different so than if someone came by with a big bulk of 200 acres in a circle that would, you know, be very different. So it is true that under the law, this does not set a precedent that you would be required to follow in terms of allowing additional residential uses in West Creek.
Okay, great. Well, thank you for that.
Mr. Chair,
Sure,
Mr. Chair,
Mr.
sorry.
Minnick.
Do we have do we have a little bit more do we have an outlook for West Creek that some additional information we might be able to share on, you know, the potential for commercial development in West Creek that would be competitive to this particular piece here? I mean, I don't know that there's any other competition for this land. Wonder if Matt, put Matt on the spot.
Well, yeah, I mean, I guess we heard earlier, I guess there's a gas line cutting across and then also some wetlands cutting across the other way. And given that irregular shape, I'm just not sure if they were to add Capital One and CarMax business park type buildings there, that would obviously have some impact on the roads and the intersections at peak hours as well, which I guess they're currently zoned and could do that by right. Is that right?
That's correct.
So this would in effect being a down zoning from what the more intensive use that's already available by right. Mr. Avalos?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, Ms. Hunter, is that gas pipeline above ground in that area or?
It's, here you can see it there, it's cleared.
It's clear, but is it above, do you know if it's above ground or under?
It's
It's
under.
underground, okay.
Yeah, you can see the gray area going
Yeah.
straight up.
You can see it runs from Tuckahoe Creek all the way down through. And
I
you
think
can't,
Something that's pretty clear is, we know we have a traffic issue here already. We have, within the 5 to 8 years of this development happening, we're gonna be looking at maybe something that doesn't sound like citizens want done, which is to convert Hockett Road to 4 lanes. That's kind of in our 25-year plan. You know, I don't know if expanding that area there where we might have a right of way would ease
You're
any
talking about
traffic
this
because it's
area.
not going anywhere. It might make it go smoother going north, but then you pretty much have a funnel there. But the traffic issue in Hockett is already bad. And this neighborhood, as proposed, does not add directly. We know people are going to take Hockett, but does not add traffic because the entrance ways are on Tuckahoe Creek Parkway and
Broad Branch.
yeah, Broad Branch. If we were to do the extension as I saw in one of the slides, and we came this way, as Mr. Minnick kind of mentioned, we're opening this property up for future development. Based on today's conditions, my guess is that in a year or two, or in a couple of years, maybe longer, we will see a proposal maybe similar to this one for more homes in that area that will create more traffic. I don't know if, you know, so I think we could be creating more development down the road by connecting it, you know, connecting Hockett Road that way than by not doing so. It might ease the traffic on Hockett, which would eliminate this proposal that we have, and maybe we move the funding over to something else, but I'm worried about once this happens, we're gonna get somebody else to come up and say, we want to develop our property. Bring in, I don't know how many acres total is there, but probably at least as many as H.H. Hunt is looking at here.
Ms. Hunter, if we could just for a second, we've talked a lot about traffic and a lot about level of service F and failing and whatnot. Could you help me distinguish between the capacity of a road to carry vehicles and intersections where your waiting time exceeds the norm? So is it an intersection waiting problem, or is it the road capacity problem? And
When they're looking at the level of service, they're typically looking at an intersection. They're looking at how long it takes you, how long you have to sit and wait at a light, how long it takes you to make a turn, how many cars. Like I think in that one analysis, it said that the turn lane queue was 17 cars. Obviously, that's probably several turns of a light before you can make a turn. The capacity is generally higher than what the capacity of the road is generally higher than the intersection because you have the conflict points at the intersection.
so it's not necessarily the roads that are being overwhelmed, it's the intersections that are being overwhelmed, and is there potential for improvement at those intersections that are currently failing with the level of service? Are turning lanes or lights or traffic circles, are there solutions that could keep traffic moving more quickly through these intersections?
Yes, there's always solutions. It's, you know, it has to be engineered and you have to have money to make those improvements. But, you know, anything from, you know, additional turn lanes, a traffic light, roundabouts, there's a variety of options to improve the capacity of an intersection.
Okay. So the capacity is constrained by the intersections at this point. If those were freed up, then the roads themselves could carry more vehicles smoothly, but not in its current configuration.
Right, and I think in the staff report, it talks about, I can't remember the numbers exactly, but I think they were about 2,600 cars a day on, you know, Tuckahoe Creek. So that road can handle significantly more cars, but the intersections are failing.
Mr. Peterson.
Mr. Minnick?
So you have not had a chance, staff has not yet had a chance to review the responses to the Kimley-Horn study?
I did not. Most of the questions were just having them clarify numbers. From their quick review is that they have appeared that they have rechecked the numbers and everything's fine, but I have not done a detailed analysis.
So we've had that, I mean, we got that document to read. I mean, are we to glean from that the questions have been sufficiently answered, and that the appropriate, staffing has occurred on that to provide us with a recommendation on them?
Well, you mentioned staff has not had a chance to review this yet.
I've glanced over it. It appears that they were able to provide a reasonable answer for every question. But again, literally, I mean, I got it just this afternoon, so I assume it's correct.
And the intersections we're talking about that are failing currently are Broad Branch and Tucko Creek and Hockett. Are those the two that,
Broad Branch, definitely. Here is West Creek Parkway and Broad Branch, and there's a Broad Branch, Capital One and West Creek Parkway. I mean, Capital One and Tuckahoe Creek fails, I believe, at the AM and PM. Hockett and Patterson fails at the AM. I think the AM is okay, but the PM is failing. So there's a number of intersections in the area that fail. And again, that's typically only an AM and PM, not an all-day event.
and what would it take for VDOT to get excited about that and make some improvements? Does it have to be an all-day traffic jam or
That makes it easier to get improvements.
as opposed to a peak hour?
Right, because you're making very expensive improvements for 2 hours a day.
Right. Okay. Other questions for staff or the applicant? No. Thank you, Ms.
Thank you.
Hunter. Any additional discussion? Any thoughts?
All right, so we're waiting on the thoroughfare plan that we don't have. There's significant traffic issues here today. I don't see how this doesn't contribute to that. West Creek is supposed to be industrial. I don't know long-term if that's a model. I mean, is a little bit of residential there okay? Maybe. I'm just really concerned about the traffic. I mean, that's what we're hearing consistently. It's what I've heard even before tonight. At best, I would delay until we saw the thoroughfare plan and try to figure it out. Otherwise, I don't know. I'm not sure I can support it.
Mr. Minnick, any thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, this is, so I don't think there's any doubt that the concept for the development is a very positive, very positive element. I mean, I would indicate, just to give my thoughts to, anyone that was interested in hearing them, is that we've had a lot of experience with West Creek since about 2002. We know that it's not generating the kind of commercial activity that we would probably like, and that at some point you have to, doing the same thing and expecting the same result kind of thing is not the way to proceed, especially when the county back in 2002 made a significant investment in infrastructure, to support what would be more of a commercial, more commercial entities in and around that area. So I think at some point, realistically, anybody that would be sitting up here would have to think about, additional opportunities to repurpose West Creek into more than one category of zoning, and kind of just kind of face reality that a mix is probably going to occur in West Creek over time, and that's probably the way to develop and build out West Creek, all the while kind of constraining high density into the West Creek area and the Tuckahoe Creek Service District area where that was sort of designed. So, but having said all that, then we've got all of the potential downstream effects that we can't really, at this point, I don't think I can really quantify in terms of knowing of, does a north-south connector now open up more of south of West Creek, and that currently zoned A1, A2 property there becomes more residentially oriented, then with the addition of an east-west corridor. We just continue to develop residential or commercial properties that direction down to Patterson Avenue. So I see a lot of potential downstreams, but I also can't see the future, so I just have to look at what I'm, kind of what's before us right now. And to tell you the truth, I'm, for the first time in 7 years, I'm on the fence on this particular application at this point, pending possibly some additional information about the transportation and what that looks like for us over the next month or so, and what the potential impacts are. But I just think we have to be, we have to balance here both the kind of the resounding popularity that's been expressed for this development, in addition to the very significant and real concerns of citizens and about those potential impacts.
Ramirez?
I just started chewing a mint, but I'm good.
You have anything else, Mr. Minnick?
No, that's good.
Can you delay?
Tried to buy you some time.
I echo what pretty much everybody has said, but so we've heard all the negatives. I'm going to focus on the benefits. To start with, I think having this kind of residential area that will not impact the schools is great. The impact of the real estate taxes, which are recurring, is equal to a little more than 3 pennies into our tax rate. So it's the equivalent of us raising the tax rate by 3 cents, which is significant when it's only 53. It allows, and this is something that I've heard from a lot of folks in Goochland, it allows current residents who are tired of mowing 3 acres of lawn to stay in Goochland. So for those of us that maybe haven't lived here all our life but want to live here the rest of our life, that would be a big benefit. Another thing that we've heard at the community meetings and haven't talked much about is we have the emergency center. Years ago when I met with the CEO of HCA, they were looking for more rooftops. I think 520 rooftops with 55 and over could very well help convert that hospital from an emergency center to a full service hospital. And then maybe one negative, or maybe one of the negatives aside from what we've already heard, is the conversion of 200 acres from prime development to residential, but we still are left with 2,400 that are not moving like hotcakes, as Mr. Minnick mentioned. So we have 2,400 acres. The owners of those acres are paying taxes, but not paying as much as we would have if those acres were developed. Companies today look to place their facilities in locations where there's plenty of housing for their employees. Now, this might be a little different. This might be employees that are ready to retire in a few years, but what better place to do it than Goochland? So that's kind of my take on this. I've heard from a lot of people that would love to see this project happen. I also hear all the concerns from all the folks who live along Hockett. So I could probably agree to a deferral if it helped us come up with a better plan for the roads or something more. As I mentioned a couple of times, we already have a plan in our 25-year plan to expand Hockett Road. So I've heard tonight that people don't really want that. So that's something we have to consider whether we approve this development or not. We had that issue up on Broad Street where people didn't want the straightening of that connection. So anyway, I think I've said enough.
Mr. Chairman.
So thank you, Mr. Alvarez.
And I'm going to ask
Mr. Badesky.
Ms. Hunter to maybe assist me with this. The one thing I want to just make sure that we understand in context as you consider your actions here. The major thoroughfare plan is a critical plan and update to all of our work and evaluation of future cases. I just want to make sure we understand what you're going to have in June to work from and what product it will produce for you to influence your future decisions. So let's say you hypothetically said, yep, let's defer this till July because we'll have that done in June. I just want to make sure you will have the tool that you feel you need to make a differently informed decision come June, because I think some of this may still require, while we have plans that are in our plans that relate to a 2005 plan, those may change over time. That's why it's in an out year and not in our current 5-year balanced plan. And so we're hearing from our residents here. We will hear from our residents on March 27th. Those plans, even in the current development, may change yet again. That may delay how long it takes to even get the project done. We're shooting for a June timeframe to be back to you, but that could get deferred in its own right. And so I just want to make sure you have the right tools to be considering and you understand what product you're going to have. So, Ms. Hunter, can you help clarify that?
Yes. So the goal for the major thoroughfare plan is June. That is a very tight and condensed timeframe. We have the first community meeting. It sounds like we're already going to have quite a bit of input. We've gotten quite a bit of input tonight on roads that may, require us to do going back to the drawing board. And again, I do just want to be clear as when we do get the major thoroughfare plan, they're just giving us concept roads. It's not going to say, a road's going to connect exactly through this property. It's going to be a conceptual plan. So just like you see, the north-south connector today, and some people are saying it's here, it's on this boundary, and someone else is saying no, it's over here and it runs through the middle. They're really concept roads, so you can't really pinpoint exactly where. We would have a little more information in terms of, what the right-of-way width and all would be with the road. But again, I think you're going to have the same issue that you have now, as exactly where do those connections get made.
Right, but Mr. Chair, understanding that, but once we start to, as we put some meat on the bone of those, for example, with an east-west connector in this case, or a north-south connector, then we're setting that area, up for some form of development, either, in the
Absolutely.
either now or in the near future. So this is kind of this is kind of the thing that I would put to the residents is you really have to look at, you know, you have to look at, I think, and balance what you have currently with the inevitable development that will come, you know, 3 years from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, and how you kind of come to grips with how you're going to mitigate some of those potential impacts on, you know, your own person, but also on the environment that you're in, because there is going to be an impact. There's no doubt about it. So, I don't know.
So just to summarize, I mean, it sounds like we'll have more information, but we may or may not have the kind of information that would help in making this decision. Is that?
I believe so. And it's factual today that our comp plan includes some other kinds of connectors. Or not our comp plan, but the 2005 Major Thoroughfare Plan. That information's been available to the applicant, to our residents for years. This applicant approached this case with what they have proffered, and did not include a north-south major collector road. There were the appropriate connections that met the core pieces of our ordinances, but did not include that road. And I don't believe that they're intending to change their case to include that road addition, not only the right-of-way, but actually the construction cost. And so I don't know, even if it shows up in June, that road would be recommended for the long-term growth of Goochland County if the applicant is interested in proffering that road. I don't want to speak on their behalf, but that is, I just anticipate what's coming out of this plan. They're going to suggest you already have failing roads. Doing nothing doesn't solve the problem. Maybe not widening Hockett Road to 4 lanes is the best solution. There may be alternatives. But I'm not sure that we're going to see much of a difference in what the applicant's case may have looked like if those recommendations come through, and that's their call.
In addition, if I might, Mr. Chairman, let me just remind you too that the applicant is constrained of what they can offer you, because they cannot offer you under this new proffer law anything that they cannot prove they significantly contribute to. Right. And even the analysis we have from Kimley Horn, analyzing their own data, doesn't say they ought to lay down a lane of pavement somewhere. They don't have that type of impact. So again, I like you have heard the residents, but I want to be clear that we are limited. We are limited, and the applicant is limited by what can be proffered under the current law by the General Assembly action that took effect in 2016.
So if this project triggered a capacity-constrained issue, they're eligible to offer a proffer, and they've done so, where it's triggered a excess capacity. Where it doesn't exceed current capacity, they're not allowed to offer any proffer.
That's correct.
To offset any capital expansions.
That's correct. And you know, they went through the capital impact model analysis, which took into effect certainly the larger road impacts in this area of the county and the plans that are in the 25 CIP, and they have fully addressed that as our model created and analyzed it. And then the only other thing to take into account is the traffic impact analysis. And the last thing that the applicant did on rebuttal is say, you know, there's a little 3% and a little 2% of intersections that is eligible, and that's all I can, and we'll offer it. It's a minor amount, and I certainly heard the residents, but that is all that they were legally allowed to offer under the proffer law. So it doesn't just impact what we, you know, can look for. If they came up right now and offered you a full thing, I don't know that I could advise you could take it. And that's the effect of the law that the General Assembly passed. It took into effect in 2016. So
So where this level of service is F, if they're going to put additional traffic that's an impact, and that would have been picked up in our model, and they would have offset that cost,
Yes,
their pro rata share.
that's what the model took into account. Yep.
Right, so then I don't know what the
And that
thoroughfare
includes,
plan's gonna do.
I'm sorry, Mr.
Yeah, go
Chair.
right ahead.
That includes the north-south connector, even though we may not want to build it,
The widening, I guess. Yeah.
because that was in the plan. The east-west was not in the plan, but the north-south is. And I'm sitting here thinking about this, and I'm thinking, if this project is not acceptable, if we cannot expand Hockett to 4 lanes, then we can pretty much close the rest of that area south of this proposed area permanently, unless we figure out a way to another road,
Maybe north too.
and maybe north as well, yeah. So, if I'm,
Go right ahead.
I'm sorry,
Mr.
Mr.
Chairman.
Chairman. If I could ask Ms. Hunter to come up one more time. I'm sorry, we're making you act like a yo-yo. I have a question about and I know we've heard a lot of it tonight, but what is the major impact on Hockett today? Is it Capital One?
Yeah,
I mean,
that is
I
a
know
big
people
part
get
of
off
it. I think,
the interstate and go south on Hockett.
well, you have, from Hockett, from Broad to Tuckahoe Creek, you have a number of developments. You have the park at Centerville, you have the park at Saddle Creek, you have the Kinlock development, you've got a number of new developments, the residential development. The AM and peak hour issues at the intersections, that is primarily from the West Creek Business Park, Capital One, and the other apartments and other businesses in there. I think 288 gets so backed up that people look for an alternative route, and they choose to use Hockett to Patterson, or Hockett to Broad.
Thank you, Ms. Hunter. All right, I'll go down the list here pretty quick and see where we, first of all, I want to thank everybody for their patience and indulgence. This is a difficult decision, obviously. We want to give this its due. Our goal is, of course, to make everybody happy all the time. And something tells me when people leave tonight, some will be happy and some won't. And that, as hard as we're trying to get this right, because I've heard citizens divided basically on this one. Makes our job a little more difficult than if citizens are united in one direction or the other. But I'll just give you the pluses and the minuses as I see them so far. Is the fallback for me, the bottom line for me is what's the best interest of the county. And that's where I start and I stop. So what is the public interest here? There seems to be demand for this type of housing, given the demographics, the aging of the county, the graying of America, as they call it, some downsizing, quality of life, maintenance-free, age-restricted. Those kinds of communities are gaining in popularity. There seems to be demand in Goochland for that kind of thing. Then I go to land use. Right now, by right, they could build additional Cap 1 or CarMax office buildings that would arrive during peak hours and dump during peak hours. And this is effectively a down zoning proposal to make it less intensive for less peak hour traffic. Is it appropriate land use? The proximity to other residential, which is Kinlock, not right next door. And then, of course, you've got the business park on the other side with Cap 1, so it's kind of a transition. It's in between. It's not necessarily out of line. This switch of the type of use from business park to residential, I mentioned the peak hour traffic. Basically, the markets have evolved. This was done in 1988 was when this was zoned. And at the time, the county made a decision. This is 15 years ago, predates everybody in this room probably, made a decision to go ahead and develop the West Creek area and designate prime economic development. And the markets have moved quite a bit, and they've moved away from that original design. And you find yourself left with, do we hang on to that original vision, even though the markets have moved and it may not be there? And I'm given to the saying that the rigid branch is the one most easily broken. If you stay rigid and hang on to your vision, you may or may not end up with what you want. So as far as the SWIP type of use, our decision to go ahead and borrow money and bury pipes wasn't contingent on an office park or a business park. It was, we have those payments no matter what. There was no contingency to say if our vision happens, then we'll borrow the money. Is it the highest and best use of the property? It's another question. It's got a very unique size and shape with a gas line and a creek and some wetlands that crisscross the property. The traffic issue, we won't beat that to death, but I heard loud and clear tonight that we don't want Hockett to be a 4-lane highway. And that's indelibly etched on all of our minds up here. That may be a separate issue for a separate day. It may be a revisiting of our comprehensive plan. It may be a visiting of our transportation plan. I don't believe that's being proposed as part of this development, and I don't believe the 2 traffic studies that have been done, one by the applicant and one by us, indicate that this particular development would require the 4-lane. So that may be a different discussion for another day, but we did hear the citizens loud and clear on that. As far as the spillover traffic from West Creek, there's some potential solutions that we can work with VDOT to try and resolve those. Those seem to be intersection driven, not capacity, road capacity driven. I suppose it's theoretically possible that some of the executives at those office buildings would want to live here, and then that would take traffic off of 288 and Patterson, but I won't even bother going there because that'll probably be small in terms of the overall. The adjacent landowners, I think we've heard tonight, we've got some serious considerations about opening up a lot more acreage in that area given the current traffic problems. And whatever north, south, east, west, whatever those connectors might do to significantly increase the volumes, we'd have to give those due consideration, and any applications that came forward would, again, stand on their own merits and would either increase the problems or address the problems. Capital impact on county services is another area I think about, and we have a capital impact model that models those out and comes up with profitable amounts, and those I believe have been met here pretty much to the penny. And the limited impact on schools, as Mr. Alvarez mentioned, age restricted, there won't be an impact on our schools. So those are kind of some of the things that come to my mind. The best interest of the county, the public interest, the land use, highest and best use, traffic issues, capital impacts. That's kind of my thoughts on this. I want to share those with the board so that you had full knowledge. Any other discussion? Yep. Seeing none, I'll go ahead and entertain a motion. By the way, citizens can't make the motion. We have to do that.
Okay. So when you make a motion, doesn't necessarily mean that's the way you're going to vote. Also with the second, one motion just to get it on the table, let's get a vote going. So I move that this rezoning be approved.
I second.
It's moved and seconded. Now I want to open it up for any additional discussion. Three, two, one.
I think we said it all.
All right, it's been moved and properly seconded to go ahead and approve the application as presented. Mr. Badesky, can you do a roll call vote, please?
Mr. Alvarez.
Yes.
Ms. Lachelette.
Yes.
Mr. Minnick.
Yes.
Mr. Peterson.
Yes. I think a slow yes is still a yes, right? Well, that was our best effort at making everybody happy tonight. We may have fallen a little bit short, but I do want to thank every citizen that came out tonight, because citizen engagement is absolutely critical to us reaching better decisions. And you should know that every single word that was said at that microphone today was taken to heart by the members up here. We took an awful lot of notes as well, and those comments will survive this evening's meeting and work into our plans going forward as well. So with that, I am going to without objection, unless there's any other business to come before this meeting,
Mr. Chairman.
it would be, is there any other business to come before this
Well, if
body?
maybe we could announce and invite everyone here to come to our, is that
The
what you were
special
gonna do
meeting?
already?
Yes. Without objection, I'm going to go ahead and adjourn. We are going to convene a special meeting of this board on Tuesday, March 20th, 2018, at 6 p.m., and it'll take place just prior to the District 1 Town Hall meeting at the Central High School. Do we announce the purpose for the meeting?
It's not a central, it's a company.
Company 4.
Company
Oh, it's
4
not at
fire
Central?
station.
I'm sorry, it's not at Central High School, it's at Company 4 Firehouse. And
Yes, the purpose of a special meeting is typically announced because that is the only discussion that should occur at that meeting.
okay. And this,
Unfortunately, this board is required by law to act with reasonable quickness to set a date for a special election to fill a vacancy on the board, to request one from the circuit court. And so you have to act very quickly to have that meeting.
we have a very short time fuse according to state law, and so we will have a special meeting to convene. This board will consider establishing a date for a special election. That's the purpose of the meeting. And that'll take place just prior to the District 1 Town Hall meeting at Company 4 Firehouse. And then following that, we'll have our regularly scheduled meeting on April 3rd, Tuesday, April 3rd, at 3 p.m. and 7 p.m., and then also have a special meeting again on Tuesday, April 17th at 7 p.m. only. That said, without objection, this meeting is adjourned.